It all started in this shithole of a building. Our boy is tied above a zombie's cage ready to eat his meat. Now this bitch here's smiling how she got our down bad boy so easily. Jang glares back in disbelief because the people beside him were once his teammates. Our guy just can't believe his girlfriend would do this to him. Kui Jing and her new daddy are making fun of the MC because he's begging for his life. Temu Tony Soprano lifts the remote and asks our boy any last words. One click later, Jang gets dropped straight toward the infected. The zombies can't wait to have a taste of Buddy's meat and rush to eat him out. He fights like crazy, but the whole cage turns into a death sentence. Even while dying, Jang swears these two frauds will pay for everything. Then he suddenly jolts awake in bed, breathing like he just escaped hell. The room is normal again and the apocalypse scene is completely gone. Kui Jing is standing nearby, alive and clueless, thinking it was just a dream. That is when Jiang realizes the big twist: somebody got his reboot card. The apocalypse has not started yet, which means our boy just got a second run. A flash of memory shows the safe zone he built while everyone else was panicking. Back then, Kui Jing showed up acting helpless, and he let her inside. That one decision ruined everything. Now Jiang is ready for his payback after what happened to him. Kui Jing mistakes his silence for disrespect and demands an answer. Jiang refuses to expose his second chance before he is properly prepared. He sends her away, choosing distance over another pointless argument. Kui Jing leaves confused, since the obedient man she knew has suddenly changed. Once the door closes, Jiang finally has room to think. The day confirms only 1 month remains before the apocalypse begins. As that deadline sinks in, a strange interface appears before him. The system orders him to secure land and prepare a full year of supplies. Mission rewards become points, giving Jiang a way to buy advantages before everyone else. The store offers enhancement medicine in specialized boxes, but every option requires points. Before he can plan further, his stomach reminds him that rebirth does not include breakfast. That hunger brings back memories of rationing food until his own body was barely functioning. This time Jiang refuses to suffer early, so he reaches for his phone. He opens a delivery app and orders enough food to challenge basic common sense. Night settles over the city while the meals begin arriving. Soon his table is covered with expensive dishes he could never enjoy during the apocalypse. Jiang hesitates over the first bite, almost forgetting what fresh food tastes like. The moment he tastes it, months of hunger and fear come rushing back. One bite hits so hard that his body reacts before his dignity can. After that, restraint disappears and the entire feast becomes a survival mission. His peaceful rampage ends when an unwanted call lights up the table. The caller is Wen Shuya, one of Kui Jing's closest friends. She demands his house deed and 1 million yuan to prove his love. Jiang finally snaps, hearing the same manipulation that destroyed his first life. Wen Shuya barely finishes saying his name before he ends the call. He leans back in relief, done wasting energy on people who betrayed him. More importantly, the system still requires land and the clock is moving. Jiang heads straight to a real estate office to complete the first mission. A saleswoman greets him politely, even though his casual clothes draw attention. He calmly explains that he wants to purchase property instead of browsing. Manager Zhu notices the conversation and immediately judges Jiang by his appearance. He orders the saleswoman away, convinced this young customer cannot afford anything. Jiang watches the manager's attitude harden before a price is even discussed. Manager Zhu studies him again and decides mockery is easier than professionalism. He claims Jiang cannot even buy a toilet while Jiang quietly prepares to prove him completely wrong. Jiang Xiaoyong walks into the agency and calmly announces that he wants to purchase land. His black card makes the request feel much less negotiable. He places it forward, leaving the employees too stunned to keep judging his hoodie. The entire lobby realizes this young stranger is not browsing, he is here to spend serious money. A saleswoman immediately changes her tone and welcomes their unexpected premium client. While she leads him toward a private table, the loudest skeptic watches with growing discomfort. Danjun presents several available properties and waits for Jiang to choose. He waves those options aside and asks for land in the Eastern District instead. Jiang studies the listings carefully, focused on survival needs nobody else understands yet. His request catches the agent off guard, since that district is hardly a normal residential choice. She confirms he truly means the Eastern District, while the suited man starts smirking again. The skeptic assumes Jiang has finally exposed himself, which is impressively premature confidence. Instead of backing down, Jiang asks to see the district's largest suitable property. The location offers isolation and enough space for everything he intends to build. Once satisfied, he tells the agent to prepare the purchase immediately. She freezes at how casually he skips every normal stage of buying land. The contract comes out quickly, especially with the skeptic's ridiculous wager still hanging over him. When the full payment clears, the suited man nearly collapses under the size of Jiang's purchase. Jiang gives him a friendly shoulder pat and quietly reminds him that promises still count. The loser tries claiming stomach trouble, but the witnesses refuse to let him escape that disgusting bet. As Zhang leaves, the system marks his land objective complete and assigns a full year of provisions next. A middle-aged man notices him walking away and studies his face with immediate suspicion. That single purchase has already attracted attention from someone who clearly knows more than he should. Back inside, the crowd restrains the loudmouth before he can run from his own terrible idea. Elsewhere, Kui Jing relaxes at home until an unexpected call interrupts her afternoon. She answers with confidence, expecting the conversation to go completely her way. That confidence vanishes when the caller demands an explanation for the missing money. Furious and cornered, Kui Jing is told to find Jiang Xiaoyang and learn how he reversed everything. Meanwhile, Jiang calculates that supplies and construction will require far more money than the land itself. His planning stops when someone pounds repeatedly on the apartment door. Kui Jing arrives with a friend and immediately demands to know what Jiang has done. He stares at them in genuine confusion since their entitlement somehow survived the missing cash. She claims the money and newly purchased land belong to her simply because Jiang paid for them. Jiang raises one finger, preparing to correct the fantasy before it grows any worse. He reminds Kui Jing that the money was his, then reveals he already knows about her connection to Li Shusheng. Hearing that name drains the anger from her face and replaces it with immediate panic. Her friend quickly pulls her back, realizing this confrontation is only making their position worse. Jiang shuts the door and leaves Kui Jing staring at the consequences outside. With no leverage left, the two women retreat toward the elevator. Her friend demands to know why Kui Jing hid her involvement with the older Li Shusheng. Rather than surrender, she suggests they return home and create a new plan. The elevator doors close and remove them from Jiang's life for the moment. Behind Kui Jing, her friend's expression reveals that her next plan may serve only herself. At the purchase factory, Jiang orders a complete renovation designed to keep the future apocalypse outside. The foreman studies the extreme requirements and warns that the requested schedule is nearly impossible. Jiang asks for the price of finishing within a month, making it clear another crew can replace them. That possibility gives the foreman a sudden and extremely professional change of heart. He names a massive premium, testing whether Jiang's urgency is real or merely expensive theater. Jiang accepts without hesitation, proving that time matters far more to him than the cost. He pushes the deadline down to 1 week and orders construction to begin immediately. A reassuring pat and guaranteed payment leave the overwhelmed foreman with very little room to argue. Before Jiang can leave, Kui Jing's friend appears alone and greets him with suspicious sweetness. She grabs his arm and acts familiar, while Jiang immediately wonders what new scheme just arrived. Kui Ting keeps hold of Jiang's arm, hoping the familiar act will pull him back under her control. He looks down at her with open discomfort, remembering exactly how much damage she helped cause. She leans closer with a confident smile, still assuming he will fold the moment she acts sweet. Jiang pulls his arm free without hesitation, leaving her charm offensive dead on arrival. Kui Ting cannot understand why deliberately showing off has earned absolutely no reaction from him. He ignores her completely and orders the workers to widen the factory's main gate. With Kui Jing pushed aside, Kui Ting decides Jiang and his valuable new property should become hers instead. Back home, Jiang calculates that mortgaging the apartment only brought 3 million yuan, far below the first construction payment. He studies the property documents and searches for another way to turn the doomed present into immediate cash. Since normal ownership will mean nothing after the outbreak, an extremely questionable solution begins taking shape. Another round of furious knocking announces the return of the troublesome neighbor downstairs. Jiang opens the door, already knowing Uncle Li has not come for a peaceful conversation. The old man immediately accuses him of partying through the night and disturbing the entire building. Jiang snaps that he was asleep before 10, making the latest complaint as fake as all the others. Instead of continuing the argument, he recognizes that Uncle Li's obsession with this apartment can solve his money problem. Jiang bluntly asks whether the old man still wants to own the 3rd floor as badly as ever. He finally offers to sell, and Uncle Li's anger disappears almost faster than it arrived. The price is 5 million upfront. While Jiang keeps living there for 6 months until his supposed new home is ready, Uncle Li can barely believe years of harassment have somehow produced the deal he wanted. He accepts on the condition that they sign a contract preventing Jiang from changing his mind. Jiang agrees with a smile, knowing that property will become worthless long before those 6 months pass. Once Uncle Li transfers 5 million, the mortgage money brings Jiang's available budget to 8 million yuan. With land secured but the supply requirement untouched, he decides to complete the system's first mission immediately. That decision brings him straight to a massive shopping center with almost everything a survivor could need. Jiang races through the aisles, loading food into his cart until the mission counter reaches 359 days. Nearby shoppers stop to stare at the man buying groceries as though civilization has already issued its closing notice. One cart becomes several, and soon a small fleet of supplies blocks the aisle behind him. The crowd assumes he believes some ridiculous apocalypse rumor, which is funny only because he knows they are the clueless ones. The final purchases complete apocalypse preparation and award Zhang 10 system points. Rather than spend them on a minor enhancement, he gambles every point on the protagonist's supply box. The exchange succeeds, and the system presents him with a glowing reward box. Inside is a level 1 spatial ring containing 500 cubic meters, where the passage of time completely stops. The ring materializes before him, turning his storage problem into the easiest part of his preparations. Because time stands still inside, even fresh food can remain preserved without spoiling. The system immediately raises the target with a new mission to accumulate 10 full years of supplies. Before Zhang can celebrate, an angry suited man marches over with 2 security guards behind him. The man calls his name in disbelief, revealing himself as Zhang's former classmate Yang Tao. Zhang recognizes him too, though the reunion brings back nothing worth remembering fondly. During middle school, Yang served as bully Zhang Shenzhou's loyal lackey and repeatedly picked fights with Zhang. Now he orders Jiang to return every item or face the consequences for disrupting the supermarket. The threat only earns a quiet smile, since Yang's old intimidation routine has not improved with age. Yang changes tactics and demands that Zhang pay for everything immediately or remain inside the store. Without arguing, Jiang rolls the loaded carts toward the checkout counters. The cashier totals the enormous purchase at 56,883 yuan. Yang thrusts forward the payment terminal, clearly expecting Jiang's confidence to collapse at the final step. A black card flashes through the reader before Yang can finish enjoying his imagined victory. The approved payment leaves him gripping the terminal with a suddenly much less impressive expression. Yang tries to retreat with the guards as though the public humiliation never happened. Zhang calls him back before he can escape and reminds him that their conversation is not finished. After being treated so rudely, Zhang demands an apology or threatens to return the entire purchase. Yang explodes at the idea of apologizing to someone he still considers beneath him. Unfortunately for him, the surrounding customers begin recording and insist that he apologize as well. Zhang remains perfectly calm, while Yang realizes his pride is now fighting the store's reputation. He raises the card and confirms that he is completely serious about canceling the massive sale. One movement toward the terminal is enough to make the financial consequence painfully real. Yang's anger collapses into panic when he realizes how badly losing the transaction could damage him. Zhang watches him struggle, offering no rescue from the situation Yang created for himself. With the crowd still watching, Yang finally lowers his head and gives the apology he swore would never happen. Zhang makes certain the bow was sincere enough before allowing his former bully to stand again. He walks away with the supplies and mentions that he is preparing for a much larger deal. Yang quickly points out that a supermarket cannot provide enough inventory, so Zhang will need a wholesaler. That useful information makes Zhang pause, even though it comes from the last person he expected to help. Yang immediately starts calling a contact, hoping the introduction can recover some of his shattered dignity. Soon they reach the supermarket's loading area, where delivery trucks and warehouse access make bulk purchasing possible. A black luxury car suddenly tears into the lot and interrupts their conversation. The vehicle stops sharply beside them, forcing Yang to scramble away, while Zhang barely moves. Zhang turns toward the driver with a cold stare, already certain this arrival will bring trouble. A tall man in a tan coat steps out smoking, carrying himself with the confidence of someone accustomed to obedience. Yang rushes over and identifies the newcomer as Brother Zhe, then eagerly points Zhang out to him. The man is Zhang Xingjie, the former school bully Yang followed throughout their middle school years. He takes one final drag while studying the classmate he once treated as an easy target. Smoke drifts across Zhang's face, but his expression makes it clear those old roles no longer apply. Zhang Xingjie smiles down at him, unaware that the boy he remembers has already survived the end of the world. Zhang's search for supplies brings him face to face with warehouse owner Zhang Xingjie. Zhang immediately shoves the broker aside for wasting his time with another supposed big client. One kick later, their polite business meeting has officially become a workplace incident. Instead of feeling threatened, Zhang watches the outburst with a knowing smile. Zhang grabs his hoodie and demands to know what this young stranger actually wants. Zhang remains completely calm, which only makes the furious warehouse owner more unsettled. That harmless smile tells Zhang he may have judged this customer far too quickly. The broker tries to calm both sides before his valuable connection disappears completely. Zhang silences him with another kick while keeping his attention fixed on Zhang. Before discussing business, he demands proof that Zhang can afford anything inside his warehouse. Zhang casually reaches for his phone, already prepared for this exact question. The balance on the screen wipes away Zhang's anger and replaces it with immediate caution. Zhang requests rice, oil, salt, snacks, drinks, and practically anything people can eat. Zhang finally starts smiling, which usually means the discount comes with something unpleasant attached. He offers the entire warehouse batch at 10% below the original wholesale price. Zhang refuses to agree blindly and insists the goods must still meet his standards. He checks the packaged food himself, confirming the stock has been stored properly. The expiration dates reveal Zhang's real plan, unloading aging inventory before it becomes worthless. Caught immediately, Zhang answers with the nervous smile of a businessman losing control. Zhang points out that most of the food is already approaching its expiration date. Zhang expects the deal to collapse, but Zhang responds with an offer he never anticipated. He agrees to take everything now, provided the full payment can wait 1 month. Zhang offers property as collateral and explains that he needs no distribution channel. Once society collapses, every box of food will become far more valuable than money. Before Zhang can fully process that statement, Zhang's phone begins ringing. He answers cautiously and demands to know who is calling before discussing anything further. With other preparations waiting, Zhang tells Zhang to begin sorting the food immediately. The broker watches him leave and realizes his commission included far more stress than advertised. Zhang's next stop is a private home where cash and ownership documents are already prepared. The elderly owner quietly wonders why someone this young wants the property so urgently. He admits that his own circumstances require a fast sale, explaining the unusually low price. Zhang jokes that such honesty gives buyers every opportunity to push the price even lower. Still, he accepts the agreement and signs the ownership transfer without creating more trouble. The completed paperwork leaves the homeowner visibly relieved after weeks of uncertainty. He bows gratefully and prepares to leave the property in Jiang's hands. Zhang's relaxed expression disappears as his attention returns to the approaching apocalypse. He stops the man long enough to collect one rather important detail: the house keys. Construction begins immediately, turning the newly purchased property into something far more useful. The supervisor walks Zhang through the site and explains how each entrance will be secured. Zhang checks the warehouse section next, making storage protection just as important as shelter. Satisfied with the plans, he calls ahead and orders the remaining supplies delivered. Workers receive generous bonuses while joking that their strange employer is building an actual bunker. Zhang personally directs the placement of food, water, fuel, and other survival necessities. After hours of work, the exhausted crew finally clears out of the fortified warehouse. Standing before mountains of supplies, Zhang confirms that 10 years of provisions are ready. The system recognizes the completed task and rewards him with 20 valuable system points. His success also expands the store, adding new boxes and permanent enhancement options. Among the new choices, an ability awakening box offers the strongest advantage before disaster arrives. Zhang spends 10 points and unlocks Mind's Eye, an ability that detects hidden hostility. That warning sense could protect him from betrayal during the most dangerous early days. The system immediately issues another mission demanding that Zhang prepare himself for combat. With shelter and supplies secured, Zhang smiles and moves toward the next stage of preparation. With his shelter stocked, Zhang enters the night market to complete the final stage of his battle preparations. The crowded alley is filled with merchants selling suspicious treasures through even more suspicious stories. One vendor advertises an emperor's childhood helmet for 300 yuan, which tells Zhang exactly what kind of market this is. He ignores the noise and searches for something that could actually matter once society collapses. Nearby customers argue over supposedly priceless jewelry, while Zhang quietly studies the stalls around them. Nothing interests him until a sharper sound cuts through the endless bargaining. The clean ring of a blade leaving its sheath finally gives him a useful lead. Zhang follows the sound toward a seller operating away from the loudest crowds. He crouches beside the display and carefully examines the quality of the available equipment. The camouflage dealer watches him closely, unsure whether this quiet customer is serious or troublesome. Zhang makes it clear that ordinary blades are nowhere near enough for what he needs. That request immediately puts the seller on guard, since careless questions can attract dangerous attention. The dealer checks the private identification number Zhang received from his contact. Zhang shows the matching information and enough proof to confirm that he came prepared to do business. Most of the suspicion disappears though. The dealer still looks uncomfortable about what comes next. He finally gestures toward a private location and tells Zhang to follow him. The real transaction waits inside an unremarkable building beside the market. Once the door closes, the seller opens a case and presents the restricted merchandise. Zhang studies the dealer rather than showing excitement over the first offer. A single item appears on the table, but Zhang needs enough equipment to protect an entire fortress. He folds his arms and refuses to pretend that such a small offer is sufficient. The size of his request shocks the dealer, who expected a far more ordinary customer. Zhang remains firm, since underpreparing now would waste every advantage his second life has given him. The seller admits that inventory on this scale belongs to another contact and was never his to control. He reaches for his phone and attempts to arrange the larger transaction. Before the call can settle anything, the door handle begins turning from outside. The dealer opens it cautiously and realizes their supposedly private meeting has been discovered. His tense expression warns Zhang that the approaching visitor was not invited. Leaning closer, he quietly urges Zhang to complete the transaction without provoking unnecessary trouble. The two step back outside together. Zhang remains calm, but the growing tension tells him the real danger has finally arrived. A heavy man in a white suit approaches with the confidence of someone who expects immediate obedience. He closes the distance and tries intimidating Jiang before any real conversation can begin. Jiang answers with a faint smile that gives the man's performance absolutely nothing to work with. Mind's eye activates and exposes the intentions hidden beneath everyone's expressions. The dealer shows caution without malice, while the white-suited man's hostility is impossible to miss. Jiang points directly at the real threat and exposes the trap before it can properly develop. The white-suited man erupts in anger once his polite act is stripped away. Instead of abandoning Jiang, the dealer moves beside him and refuses to participate in the betrayal. More associates appear behind the newcomer, including a woman who insists that Jiang must be kept alive. The white-suited man orders his group to surround them and block every route out of the alley. Before they can close in, the dealer raises his metal staff and takes control of the confrontation. One sharp counter sends the white-suited man tumbling across the pavement. He lands coughing while the rest of his group suddenly becomes far less enthusiastic about fighting. 2 days later, Jiang is back at the warehouse with the dangerous negotiation behind him. A delivery truck arrives carrying the final shipment needed for his fortified base. The sealed crates confirm that his shelter is now equipped to withstand a serious attack. Completing the battle preparation mission produces another glowing reward from the system. The reward becomes a physical enhancement injection that promises a major increase in strength. Jiang uses it immediately, trusting the system more than the ordinary limits of his body. Pain tears through him as the enhancement begins rebuilding his muscles from within. When the effect settles, his physical strength has increased by 40%. The system store now offers stronger enhancements and additional survival supplies for future missions. Jiang studies the empty injector and decides numbers alone are not enough to measure the difference. A final surge of energy surrounds him as the enhancement fully stabilizes. He notices a reinforced metal bar nearby and chooses it for a practical test. The thick bar feels surprisingly light inside his grip. Jiang bends it with one powerful movement that his former body could never have managed. He twists the metal even further and confirms that ordinary human strength is no longer his limit. With the test finished, Jiang turns back toward the truck and reviews the final shipment. A second test splinters a wooden shaft in his hand, proving he still needs to control his new power. The apocalypse begins the day after tomorrow, leaving almost no time to correct anything he overlooked. That thought brings back Uncle Lee's desperate request that Jiang not cancel the apartment sale. Even after surviving betrayal and death, Jiang cannot ignore the guilt of leaving the old man unprepared. He walks out of the warehouse to settle that final responsibility before the world changes. Jiang arrives at Uncle Lee's apartment complex with one final responsibility left before the apocalypse. He steps away from the car and studies the old building that may soon become their shelter. With little time remaining, Jiang heads upstairs to find the stubborn neighbor he once resented. He reaches Uncle Lee's door and knocks. While waiting, Jiang quietly activates the spatial ring on his finger. Stacks of food and survival supplies instantly appear throughout the narrow hallway. A weak cough approaches from inside as Uncle Lee slowly makes his way toward the door. The old man opens it and is surprised to find Jiang waiting outside. His confusion deepens when he notices the serious expression on Jiang's face. Then he sees enough boxes to fill the staircase and completely forgets what he planned to say. Jiang carries the supplies inside before Uncle Lee can begin asking questions. The old man marvels that Jiang moved everything without even stopping to catch his breath. After checking the apartment, Jiang decides the structure is solid enough to offer temporary protection. He turns toward Uncle Lee and asks where his granddaughter is currently staying. Before receiving an answer, a framed photograph on the nearby table catches his attention. The picture shows Uncle Lee standing beside his granddaughter Shanshan. Jiang immediately recognizes her as someone he encountered during his first life after civilization collapsed. He picks up the photograph while Uncle Lee watches his sudden reaction with growing concern. The old man explains that Shanshan is still at school and should return later. Jiang remembers sitting beside her among the ruins while she mourned the family she could not save. He places the photograph down and silently promises that she will not carry that regret again. Uncle Lee notices the change in him and nervously asks what Jiang is planning. Jiang warns that the apartment deed and Shanshan's school registration will soon become completely meaningless. Uncle Lee admits that he does not understand a single word of this strange warning. Realizing explanations will never convince him, Jiang decides to demonstrate the truth directly. He raises the spatial ring and explains that he knows a terrifying disaster is about to begin. With one motion, every supply box disappears back into the ring. Uncle Lee stares at the empty apartment and wonders whether he has just witnessed actual magic. Jiang claims he has powers and knowledge of the future, then demands complete trust for Shanshan's survival. His first instruction is simple. They need to collect her from school immediately. Uncle Lee joins him in the car despite still struggling to process everything he witnessed. Jiang races across town and pulls into the school courtyard before the old man can reconsider. They climb out together while Uncle Lee finally agrees to follow Jiang's instructions. Elsewhere on campus, Shanshan is already surrounded by a group of hostile students. The lead bully slaps her and accuses her of stealing the attention of someone she likes. Shan Shan insists she rejected the boy, but her explanation only makes the other girl angrier. Another bully kicks her and orders her to stop making excuses. The leader grabs Shan Shan by the hair while her friend watches with cold amusement. Shan Shan struggles to break free, but the girls continue humiliating her without any fear of consequences. Zhang and Uncle Li finally arrive and see exactly what has been happening. The furious grandfather charges forward and orders everyone to get away from Shan Shan. 3 male students step between him and the girls, clearly expecting an easy fight. One of them swings a metal baton at Uncle Li while mocking him for interfering. The weapon comes down before the old man has any chance to defend himself. Zhang catches the baton in one hand and stops the attack completely. He coldly asks why these students are already learning to behave like thugs. The attacker responds with another insult, still convinced that his friends give him the advantage. Zhang answers with one kick that launches him backward across the courtyard. The student crashes onto the ground before he even understands what struck him. His 2 remaining friends stare in disbelief as their confidence begins disappearing. Zhang calmly watches them, showing no concern about being outnumbered. The pair separates and approaches from opposite directions to trap him between them. The larger student swings his baton with enough force to end the fight immediately. Zhang ducks beneath it as his enhanced reflexes make the attack feel painfully slow. He catches the student's shoulder before the bully can recover his balance. One sharp counter sends the attacker straight down onto the courtyard floor. The fallen student cries out while every bit of his earlier confidence vanishes. The blonde bully rushes from behind and swings his baton toward Zhang's head. Zhang catches his weapon arm and uses the attacker's momentum to turn him upside down. A rising kick follows before the blonde student can regain control of his body. The blow sends him flying across the courtyard and completely ends his attack. He crashes face first onto the ground beside his defeated friends. Zhang stands over the 3 fallen bullies while the entire courtyard falls silent. The lead female bully steps forward, furious that Zhang has destroyed her entire advantage. Zhang answers Sunwei's threat with a slap that instantly wipes away her confidence. She freezes with a burning cheek, unable to believe someone finally struck back. Before Sunwei can recover, Zhang grabs her hair and pulls her under control. He pins her in place and warns that touching Shan Shan again will bring worse consequences. One quick motion cuts away the long hair Sunwei was so proud of. Zhang's cold expression makes it clear that his warning is not an empty threat. The other bullies can only stare while Shan Shan watches their entire advantage disappear. Sunwei drops to her knees as the last of her confidence finally collapses. She reaches for her head and realizes most of her carefully styled hair is gone. Her outrage immediately erupts, though Jiang has no interest in hearing the complaints. He holds up the severed ponytail, leaving Sunwei with one unforgettable reminder. With the bullying settled, Jiang tells Shan Shan and Uncle Li that they are leaving immediately. Shan Shan follows them in confusion and asks where they could possibly be going. Once the car reaches the highway, she learns that she will not be returning to school. Uncle Li attempts to explain the coming disaster, but mentioning a massive famine only confuses her more. Shan Shan assumes her grandfather has fallen for another scam and begins scolding him again. Their argument continues behind Jiang, with Uncle Li insisting that he is finally telling the truth. Jiang calmly introduces himself, though his confidence only makes Shan Shan more curious. She asks who he really is and why her grandfather suddenly trusts him completely. Shan Shan still thanks Brother Xiaoyang for protecting her from Sunwei and the others. Gratitude does not mean blind faith, so she admits that his disaster warning sounds impossible. In her eyes, a peaceful modern society cannot suddenly collapse into widespread starvation. Jiang corrects her by explaining that famine will be the result, not the true beginning. Instead of demanding belief, he tells Shan Shan to open her phone and check the latest reports. She searches the news while their car continues racing toward Jiang's fortified shelter. One video shows authorities restraining a violent man after several unexplained biting attacks. The report mentions strange symptoms that do not match the ordinary rabies explanation. Shan Shan pauses and begins noticing that something about the situation genuinely feels wrong. She turns back toward Jiang and asks what these incidents actually mean. He explains that similar attacks have already appeared across several provinces. Jiang remembers how rapidly ordinary streets became hunting grounds during his first life. Once the infected attacked, anyone dragged beneath the crowd had almost no chance of escaping. Those who died soon rose again as the same creatures that had torn civilization apart. Shan Shan asks how Jiang could possibly know so much about something that has barely begun. Before he answers, traffic thickens across the highway and slows every lane ahead. Jiang sees the growing jam and realizes they cannot afford to become trapped here. The emergency lane remains open, while the normal lanes fill with frustrated drivers. A black sedan aggressively forces its way into the opening and nearly strikes another vehicle. Jiang's patience disappears when the reckless driver blocks the only clear route forward. He accelerates into the emergency lane and pulls alongside the other sedan. The rival driver suddenly sideswipes them, throwing Shan Shan and Uncle Li across their seats. Jang steadies the car as anger replaces every bit of restraint he was showing. He turns the wheel sharply and refuses to let the stranger force them from the road. The two vehicles weave through traffic while Jang begins pushing ahead. A narrow gap appears between the sedan and a nearby white car. Jang focuses on that single opening and prepares to escape the dangerous contest. He threads through the gap with barely enough space to avoid both vehicles. The furious rival pulls beside him and shouts through the open window. Uncle Lee panics in the back seat, but Jang simply tells everyone to hold on. The other sedan accelerates again, refusing to accept that Jang has overtaken him. Shan Shen warns that the same car is approaching fast and preparing to cut them off. Jang grits his teeth, realizing the stranger will endanger everyone over wounded pride. The rival sedan swerves across their path and attempts another aggressive collision. Uncle Lee pulls Shan Shan close as the sudden maneuver throws them sideways. Jang stays calm and waits until the rival driver fully commits to the attack. At the final moment, he shifts position and sends the other sedan sliding toward the roadside. The uncontrolled vehicle crashes against the barrier while Jang continues down the highway. Smoke surrounds the damaged sedan as its furious driver climbs out beside the wreck. The stranded man grabs his phone and begins calling someone while shouting after Jang. All he can do is threaten the disappearing car, unaware that his connections will soon mean nothing. After escaping the highway confrontation, Jang finally brings Uncle Lee and Shan Shan inside his fortified compound. The old man climbs from the car in disbelief, while Jang and Shan Shan head toward the main building. From the courtyard alone, the place already feels far larger than either guest expected. Jang tells them the defenses are impressive but still not strong enough for what is coming. By morning, he is already surveying the surrounding city and checking the compound from above. Shan Shan finds him in the hallway after waking and stretches away the last of her exhaustion. Jang welcomes her with a small smile, ready to explain the rules of their new home. He begins with the entrances, which can be controlled remotely and sealed before outsiders get close. Without Jang's permission, nobody beyond the three of them is allowed inside the fortress. Shan Shan is startled by how absolute that rule sounds. Jang explains that one careless act of kindness could expose every person sheltering here. When society collapses, desperation will magnify people's worst instincts and blind sympathy can become fatal. Uncle Lee and Shan Shan fall silent as the warning finally starts feeling real. From the upper walkway, they can see the open yard and containers arranged across the compound. Jang leads them onward since the tour still has one much more important stop. The next building is a massive warehouse with organized supplies stretching across row after row. He turns back toward them and prepares to reveal what those shelves are meant to support. Energy gathers around Jiang as he activates his storage ability. Shan Shan and Uncle Lee watch with growing anticipation, having learned that his surprises are rarely small. Crates of defensive equipment materialize while Jiang explains that survival may eventually require fighting back. He lets both of them examine manageable gear so they will not be helpless during an emergency. Uncle Lee studies what he has been given, still struggling to accept how thoroughly Jiang prepared. The system interrupts with a new mission to locate and rescue Jiang's former comrade Jiang Qi. Jang recognizes the face immediately and realizes the search for his old allies has begun. A glowing marker appears in the distance, conveniently revealing where Jiang Qi can be found. Jang orders Shan Shan and Uncle Lee to remain inside and keep the compound secure. He drives out alone, following the marker back toward the city. The trail leads him to a karaoke club as evening settles over the streets. Inside, Jiang Qi is drinking and singing with several former classmates during a noisy reunion. Once the alcohol catches up with him, a bespectacled friend helps him toward the restroom. They finally reach the men's room, though the trip back will cause far more trouble. Jiang Qi stumbles into the hallway with his friend and crosses paths with a blonde woman and her escort. The woman recoils when the drunken Jiang Qi wanders too close. He raises a hand and tries to apologize, but the man beside her has already taken offense. The escort attacks without warning and knocks Jiang Qi backward. Still drunk and completely unprepared, Jiang Qi crashes hard against the wall. His bespectacled friend rushes over and tries helping him back onto his feet. The friend angrily demands an explanation while the escort acts as though the accident was deliberate. With the blonde woman watching, the man decides to turn the misunderstanding into a display of authority. He grabs Jiang Qi's friend by the collar and lifts him from the floor. Another classmate hears the commotion and realizes their quiet celebration has officially gone off the rails. Jiang Qi and the others rush in to pull their friend away before the confrontation becomes worse. The escort strikes another student for interfering, ending any chance of a calm resolution. One frightened classmate urges everyone to leave since they cannot afford a fight with people disconnected. The group retreats toward their private room while the blonde woman watches them go. They hurry back into room 3090 and close the door behind them. Jiang Qi drops onto the sofa while his embarrassed friends try to recover from the confrontation. Around the table, humiliation quickly turns the reunion's cheerful mood into anger. One student threatens to rally their entire engineering department and return with overwhelming numbers. Jiang Qi tells him to stop escalating things, knowing wounded pride will only create a larger disaster. Before anyone can settle down, a powerful kick slams into the room's door. The hostile escort returns with a larger group and marches straight inside. Jiang Qi and his classmates stare up as every possible exit becomes blocked. The intruders spread through the room and identify the students they came back to punish. Jiang Qi and his bespectacled friend are forced down while the larger men surround them. Another classmate doubles over between the attackers, realizing nobody outside knows what is happening. The escort keeps shouting while Jiang Qi struggles to stop the situation from getting even worse. One attacker grabs a heavy bottle from the table after deciding that intimidation is no longer enough. He brings it down toward a kneeling student before anyone can pull the victim away. Jiang Qi finally shouts back, unable to watch his friends suffer for defending him. Outside the club, Jiang's car arrives just as the confrontation reaches its breaking point. He steps onto the pavement with a confident smile, certain the system has led him to the right place. Jiang walks through the entrance while Jiang Qi remains trapped upstairs with the hostile group. Before Jiang reaches the room, Jiang Qi drops beside Qincheng, while the gang leader watches without concern. The leader and his blonde companion treat the injured students as entertainment instead of a problem. He points the object in his hand toward Jiang Qi and orders everyone to stay down. One frightened classmate quietly grabs something from the floor and decides they cannot keep surrendering. Several students rush the gang leader together, hoping numbers can finally push his men back. Their resistance enrages him since these terrified students were supposed to remain obedient. He intercepts the first attacker and smashes the glass object across him before the charge can land. The student drops immediately, proving that bravery alone will not close the difference between them. Jiang Qi and another classmate charge next while the rest of the room erupts into chaos. The bespectacled student retreats onto the sofa and protects his head from the brawl. Nearby, one man begins sweating and coughing while everyone remains focused on the fight. Jiang Qi grapples with the long-haired thug, but neither notices the danger developing beside them. The sick man's eyes suddenly glow as the infection takes control of his body. He surges forward with unnatural speed, turning an ordinary beating into something far worse. The infected man attacks the long-haired thug and clamps onto him before anyone can react. The thug struggles to pull free, while the blonde woman finally realizes this is no normal fight. The bespectacled student stares in horror as panic spreads through the entire room. Several men drag the infected attacker backward, but even together they can barely restrain him. He breaks loose long enough to bite another student's arm. The infected man tackles his new victim and keeps attacking despite everyone trying to stop him. A hand suddenly closes around the creature's neck from behind. Jiang lifts him with one arm, making the struggle that overwhelmed everyone else look almost effortless. He drives the infected man into the floor and stops the attack before another person is hurt. Jiang pins him against the shattered wall while the entire private room falls silent. One bitten student checks his injured hand and realizes the damage may be more serious than it appears. The gang leader and the long-haired thug demand answers, still trying to reclaim control of the room. Jiang ignores them and checks on Jiang Qi, confirming that his former comrade can still move. Jiang Qi studies the stranger who rescued them and senses something strangely familiar about him. Jiang calls him by name, leaving Jiang Qi confused about how they could possibly know each other. The gang leader grabs Jiang Qi's shoulder and tries forcing himself back into the conversation. Behind him, the long-haired thug begins shaking while the sickness spreading through him grows worse. Jiang recognizes the symptoms immediately from the transformations he witnessed during his first life. The thug admits he had already felt sick earlier but still refuses to understand the warning. Jiang restrains the first infected man and explains that the bites are spreading something dangerous. The long-haired thug dismisses him, convinced a small wound cannot possibly threaten his life. Jiang's expression hardens since denial will not delay what has already begun. He drags the first infected attacker toward the exit while everyone else keeps their distance. One forceful shove sends the creature outside the private room. Jiang slams the door shut before it can rush back inside. The infected man pounds against the barrier while Jiang calmly listens from the other side. He turns toward the group and explains that the violent stranger outside is no longer acting human. When they still hesitate, Jiang cracks his knuckles and prepares to make the danger impossible to ignore. Jiang Qi watches carefully while the gang leader mistakes Jiang's calmness for disrespect. The furious man charges, determined to restore his authority in front of everyone. Jiang catches the attack before it lands and locks the man's arm in place. A clean counter sends the gang leader crashing onto the floor beside his own men. The long-haired thug rushes forward next, ignoring the weakness spreading through his body. Jiang stops him with one strike before he can reach anyone else. The thug collapses at Jiang's feet while the room goes silent again. Instead of remaining still, his body begins shaking uncontrollably across the illuminated floor. A nearby classmate leans closer and realizes the fallen man is changing too. Jiang orders everyone to stay back because the apocalypse has already reached this room. After the sudden attack, Jiang Xiaoyong agrees to lead the injured survivors out, before the situation gets worse. The group gathers its wounded and starts moving through the hallway under his direction. More battered men join them, leaving the private room with barely enough strength to walk. A furious guard blocks Jiang's path and demands to know why everyone is leaving. Jiang warns that something dangerous is happening inside, but the guard refuses to listen. Jiang ends the argument with one throw, saving everyone from a very unnecessary debate. The door slams shut behind the furious guard. Trapped inside, he pounds against it and screams threats at Jiang. His rage changes into something far worse as his eyes begin glowing red. A savage roar confirms that Jiang's warning was completely real. The infected man turns on everyone still trapped inside the private room. While chaos erupts behind the door, Jiang calmly secures the handle from outside. A frightened employee offers help, and Jiang orders him to keep that room locked. The employee finally understands that this is the rumored rabbit flu. Jiang has no patience for questions and tells him to lock it now. The employee obeys without asking for another demonstration. With the immediate threat contained, Jiang signals the survivors to keep moving. 2 more employees notice the evacuation and wonder where everyone is going. The moment they hear rabbit flu, confusion turns into panic. The remaining staff decide their shift is officially over and sprint away. Inside the nightclub, the surveillance room receives the first clear warning. The staff stare at their monitors as the impossible scene unfolds. Security footage shows infected guests attacking anyone still inside. Jiang gets his group outside and warns that the building is no longer safe. They pile into the car and leave before the outbreak spreads any farther. Once they are moving, the white-haired survivor sincerely thanks Jiang for saving them. He also asks who Jiang's employer is, but Jiang leaves the answer deliberately vague. The bespectacled survivor wonders whether everything inside the private room was only an illusion. That thought leads to the question nobody wants answered, whether the rabbit flu is actually real. Jiang explains that the disaster is real and will only become worse from here. The entire car falls silent as the survivors process what that means. Danger arrives on the road with terrible timing as another infected person lunges toward them. Jiang warns that the infection will spread widely, so survival now depends on following his orders. The survivors exchange uneasy looks, but nobody argues after what they just witnessed. The system confirms that former partner Volume 1 is complete and awards Jiang 20 points. The store opens with cultivation food and armed defense supply boxes costing only 2 points each. Every option is useful, so Jiang plans to redeem them all before returning to the fortress. The supplies are handled, but earning the survivors' trust remains a separate problem. The white-haired man finally admits their employer betrayed people who treated him as family. The others fall silent and their loyalty begins shifting away from the man who abandoned them. That night, a woman speaks sweetly over the phone from her apartment. She claims she is shopping and promises to send supplies once her work is finished. A violent knock interrupts the conversation and immediately puts her on edge. She hurriedly ends the call before approaching the door. One nervous look through the peephole reveals a familiar visitor. The red-haired woman enters and asks whether old Lu was the person on the phone. She explains that police and an ambulance removed old Lu during the earlier commotion. The dark-haired woman finally connects that news to the chaos downstairs that morning. Her visitor asks whether Jiang has delivered the supplies he promised, but he has not. Rather than wait, the red-haired woman insists they contact Jiang and negotiate immediately. She reveals that someone has been watching him and tracking repeated deliveries to his abandoned factory. The pattern makes them realize Jiang probably knew about the outbreak before everyone else. The red-haired woman wants a deal quickly, already planning to demand a larger share of his future profits. Xiaoyong's car races through the fortress entrance with Zhang Qi and the injured students safely aboard. Everyone climbs out while the classmates support those who can barely walk on their own. Zhang Qi stares around in disbelief, since this abandoned factory has been transformed into a genuine fortress. Their reaction tells Xiaoyong that the preparations already look excessive to anyone who missed the coming disaster. Shanbo and Shanshan rush outside immediately and anxiously check whether Xiaoyong was injured. He assures them he is fine before turning their attention toward the people he brought back. Xiaoyong introduces Zhang Qi and his classmates as companions who will be staying with them from now on. Shanshan trusts his decision and gives the exhausted newcomers a warm welcome into the base. As Xiaoyong speaks with Shangbo, one classmate studies the armed defenses and realizes how serious this place is. Yiming awkwardly raises his hand and tries to make a request before everyone heads inside. He asks Xiaoyong to give them weapons so the newcomers can contribute to defending the fortress. The request earns a cold glance, since Xiaoyong has no intention of arming people he barely knows. Another classmate warns Yiming that they should earn everyone's trust before demanding access to defensive equipment. Xiaoyong avoids making any promises and tells them that the discussion can wait until later. For now, they need rooms and medical treatment far more than they need weapons. A hot shower finally gives the students a moment of comfort after everything they survived that night. They admit that none of them would have escaped the club if Xiaoyong had not arrived. Yiming refuses to relax and argues that being rescued does not mean they should blindly trust their host. His roommate reminds him that whatever Xiaoyong wants, the man still saved all of their lives. Zhangqi questions the suspicion since Xiaoyong never forced them to follow him or promised them anything. Yiming points toward their injured classmate and claims the secure medical room feels more like a prison. He even suggests Xiaoyong could be keeping the student isolated for some hidden and dangerous purpose. The others are disgusted that Yiming would accuse their rescuer while they are still standing inside his home. Yiming takes it further by proposing they seize Shangbo and Shanshan whenever Xiaoyong leaves the fortress. The room falls silent as everyone realizes his idea sounds far too serious to dismiss. Seeing their expressions, Yiming quickly laughs and pretends the entire plan was only a bad joke. Zhangqi wipes away his nervous sweat, but the tension does not disappear with Yiming's excuse. The showers continue running while the uncomfortable conversation finally comes to an end. Left behind, Yiming privately decides the others are too weak to involve in his real plans. Later that night, Xiaoyong meets privately with Shangbo and Shanshan inside the warehouse. Shangbo notices something is bothering him and waits for Xiaoyong to explain the problem. Xiaoyong first thanks them for their work and tells both of them to rest before morning. Before they leave, he stops them with an important warning about the newcomers. Xiaoyong suspects there is a traitor among Zhangqi's classmates and wants them to remain careful. Once he is alone, the quiet warehouse gives him time to prepare for whatever comes next. He opens the system shop and decides to spend the points earned from completing his recent mission. Xiaoyong selects the supply boxes that will strengthen their food production and fortress defenses. The 3 purchases rapidly reduce his balance until only 8 system points remain. In return, he receives crop seeds, preserved food, and a useful reserve of defensive supplies. The rewards materialize as a mountain of boxes that instantly fills another section of the warehouse. By the following morning, several unfamiliar vehicles are already speeding towards Xiaoyong's fortress. 2 trucks surround a black car as the convoy stops directly outside the reinforced entrance. A large group steps out carrying clubs and equipment, making their intentions clear before anyone speaks. Their leader points toward the fortress and orders his men to tear the entrance down. The attackers hammer the metal gate repeatedly, but the reinforced barrier refuses to move. One man reports that the gate is nearly an inch thick and impossible to break with their current tools. Their leader grows furious that an ordinary factory could possess defenses stronger than most secure buildings. Unable to force their way inside, the gang begins unloading heavy wooden crates from the trucks. The crates contain prepared incendiary bottles intended to burn the people inside out of hiding. On command, the attackers light the bottles and throw them over the walls of the fortress. Flames erupt across the compound as the bottles shatter against several outer buildings. The gang watches the fortress burn, unaware that Xiaoyong prepared this place for threats far worse than them. The gang's burning bottles fly over the walls and ignite several areas inside Xiaoyong's fortress. Shanshan, Zhangqi, and the others rush forward with water and extinguishers before the flames can spread. Shanshan takes charge of the emergency and directs everyone toward the nearest fires. Xiaoyong arrives beside Shangbo with none of the panic gripping everyone around them. The two climb the watchtower to identify the attackers without opening the fortified entrance. From above, Shangbo recognizes both the furious leader and the car parked below. They are the same men who caused the road rage incident during Xiaoyong's earlier supply run. One attacker finally notices the figure standing above the walls and alerts the gang. The men confirm that Xiaoyong is the same young man who embarrassed their leader before. Their leader points toward the tower and begins shouting threats from behind his entire crew. Xiaoyong gives them 5 minutes to gather their people and disappear from his territory. Instead of listening, the attackers boast about their boss and mock Xiaoyong for challenging them. The system responds to the attack by issuing Xiaoyong another defensive mission. Removing the ordinary threat as quickly as possible will reward him with 10 additional points. Xiaoyong rejects Shangbo's suggestion of warning shots after watching them deliberately set the occupied base on fire. Men willing to burn strangers alive will only endanger more innocent people if allowed to leave. He opens fire from the watchtower before the gang can organize another attack. The first attacker drops and the confidence outside the gate disappears immediately. Panic tears through the group as everyone abandons the assault and searches for cover. Xiaoyong notices the remaining attackers moving toward their vehicle and realizes they intend to escape. Their leader hides beside the SUV while continuing to threaten the man controlling the entire fight. Xiaoyong calmly keeps the vehicle in his sights and waits for them to expose themselves. Another controlled attack sends the gang scattering as they desperately race toward the SUV. The surviving men pile inside and scream at the driver to leave before anyone else falls. Shangbo worries they might escape, but Xiaoyong assures him the vehicle will not get far. The fleeing SUV takes several heavy impacts and begins swerving uncontrollably across the road. Xiaoyong reloads without rushing and keeps the damaged vehicle under pressure. Shangbo watches in disbelief since Xiaoyong handles the weapon better than many trained soldiers he once knew. The SUV finally stops in a cloud of smoke with its defeated passengers scattered nearby. Xiaoyong lowers his weapon and tells Shangbo to leave the cleanup for later. His attention shifts away from the fallen gang as another problem approaches the fortress. Shangbo questions whether they can simply leave all those men lying outside on the road. Before Xiaoyong answers, a convoy of expensive vehicles speeds toward the compound. Inside the lead car, Li Shuxiang announces that they are nearly at the next intersection. Kui Jing and Wen Shuya ride behind him while preparing to approach Xiaoyong's fortress. One woman teases the other for changing her entire attitude whenever Li Shuxiang is nearby. Li Shuxiang affectionately asks for a message once the women make it safely inside. Kui Jing steps out and orders a surprise Wen Shuya to accompany her. Wen Shuya questions why she must join when Kui Jing was supposed to handle the meeting. She remembers leaving her phone inside, but Kui Jing pulls her onward and tells her to forget it. The driver watches both women walk toward the fortress while the convoy remains behind them. Once they are gone, Li Shuxiang contacts his hidden men and orders everyone to prepare. A waiting van moves forward and quietly takes position near the other vehicles. The men packed inside acknowledge the order and ready themselves for Li Shuxiang's signal. Meanwhile, Wen Shuya complains that Kui Jing dragged her into a plan she never agreed to. Their conversation turns toward clothing and the person each woman was apparently hoping to impress. One doubtful glance makes it clear that the embarrassed explanation convinced absolutely nobody. They reach the wrecked SUV and freeze after discovering the aftermath of Xiaoyong's defense. Wen Shuya becomes frightened and urges Kui Jing to turn around while they still can. Nearby, one surviving attacker remains hidden and secretly watches both women approach the fortress. Kui Jing proposes quietly checking whether the factory entrance is locked while Li Shuxiang's men handle everything else. Behind them, the fallen gang leader opens his infected eyes and reveals that the danger is not over. Following the failed ambush outside, Kui Jing and Wen Shuya begin pounding on Xiaoyang's sealed fortress gate. The reinforced entrance reveals nothing inside, leaving both women unsure whether anyone can hear them. They raise their voices toward the walls and demand that someone finally answer. Shan Shan appears on the watchtower and asks how two strangers discovered this heavily fortified place. Kui Jing quickly claims they are Xiaoyong's friends and only came to check on him. Shan Shan calls Xiaoyong over while reporting that one visitor claims to be especially close to him. Kui Jing bristles at seeing another woman beside him, but Wen Shuya reminds her to follow their plan. Li Shuxiang has armed backup waiting nearby, and they only need Xiaoyong to open the gate. Xiaoyong recognizes both women immediately, though their sudden concern does not fool him. His insight ability activates and exposes the hostility hidden beneath their friendly performance. Kui Jing sweetly claims they came out of concern while the system marks both visitors as enemies. Xiaoyong calmly asks whether they noticed any rabid flu patients wandering around the surrounding roads. His strange question leaves both women confused as they stare toward the tower. Warning shots strike the ground near their feet and force them away from the fortress entrance. They accuse Xiaoyong of losing his mind after he deliberately frightened them. He remains completely calm and tells them there is something far more frightening behind them. Xiaoyong watches from above as both visitors slowly turn toward the road. Their anger gives way to unease when they finally notice movement near the abandoned vehicles. The attackers defeated earlier are standing again as infected creatures and advancing toward them. Xiaoyong points out that ordinary flu cannot revive the dead, proving this outbreak is something far worse. The infected release a furious roar and immediately charge toward the two women. Kui Jing and Wen Shuya abandon their performance and sprint away as the entire group follows. Li Shuxiang hears them screaming his name and looks outside to see what ruined the ambush. Both women beg him for help while the infected rapidly close the distance behind them. One look at the pursuing creatures destroys Li Shuxiang's courage and changes his priorities completely. He orders every driver to turn around immediately rather than risk himself for either woman. The convoy races away and leaves Kui Jing cursing the man who promised to protect her. Desperate to survive, Wen Shuya grabs Kui Jing's bag strap and refuses to be the one left behind. Kui Jing pulls free and continues running while Wen Shuya angrily reaches after her. The loose strap wraps around Kui Jing's ankle and instantly ruins her escape. She crashes onto the road and loses the small lead keeping her alive. The infected surround Kui Jing before she can recover while Wen Shuya keeps running. Kui Jing is overwhelmed as the consequences of their failed scheme finally catch up with her. Wen Shuya escapes alone and repeatedly convinces herself that Kui Jing deserved what happened. The system issues Xiaoyong a street sweep mission to clear every infected wandering outside his base. Shanshan remains shaken by how quickly the two visitors betrayed and abandoned each other. Xiaoyong shifts his attention toward the infected still gathering beyond the fortress walls. He heads down to clear the road before the growing crowd attracts even more danger. Later, Xiaoyong gathers Zhang Qi's group and distributes the infection sources recovered from previous encounters. He explains that absorbing their energy helps the body adapt and greatly reduces the risk of mutation. Zhang Qi understands the benefit but his thoughts immediately return to the injured Chang Ye. Chang Yi remains unconscious inside the medical room while everyone else prepares for the outbreak. Dark veins spread across his hand and reveal that the infection is still advancing. The mutation reaches his face in silence before anyone outside realizes how little time remains. While Chang Yi's condition worsens inside the fortress, smoke and panic spread throughout the surrounding city. Jiang Shengjie watches terrified residents flee below and realizes everything outside has descended into complete chaos. He orders Xiao Li and Shuai Shuai to stay home while he retrieves the remaining supplies. Before Shenjie can leave, heavy pounding suddenly echoes through the apartment. He stops immediately and focuses on the entrance as the knocking continues. Shenjie signals for his frightened wife and son to remain completely silent. He approaches with a golf club ready until a familiar voice calls him Brother Zhe. Recognizing the visitor makes Shenjie relax and lower his guard at the worst possible moment. He unlocks the door without realizing that several men are waiting beyond it. The entrance bursts open and the first attacker knocks Shenjie backward. More men rush into the apartment and overwhelm him before he can recover. The gang restrains Shenjie while their suited leader calmly watches from above. Shenjie recognizes the betrayer and demands to know why years of kindness meant nothing. He reminds the man that his own support once helped him afford a home. The suited leader laughs away that debt while his followers keep Shenjie pinned down. Unable to move, Shenjie can only glare at the people invading his home. The leader notices Xiao Li and Shuai Shuai and immediately turns his attention toward them. He grabs Xiao Li, using her fear to punish the husband who once trusted him. Shuai Shuai cries out and rushes forward when he sees his mother being threatened. The frightened child desperately fights back in an attempt to protect her. The leader shoves Shuai Shuai aside while Xiao Li watches helplessly. Shenjie begs the gang to take whatever they want and leave his family alone. Ignoring his plea, the suited leader orders him to reveal where the remaining supplies are stored. Not long afterward, the gang arrives at the separate building Shangji used as a warehouse. They enter with their captive and expect to find enough resources to secure their future. Instead, only a small collection of boxes remains inside, and the leader is visibly disappointed. That disappointment quickly becomes greed as he begins considering a much larger target. He proposes taking the enormous stockpile Xiaoyong prepared inside his fortified factory. Shenjie warns that Xiaoyong is heavily prepared for anyone attempting to steal from him. The suited leader dismisses the danger and assumes Xiaoyong is merely another man they can overpower. Shenjie insists the fortress will be nothing like the helpless apartment they just invaded. His warning is ignored, leaving him to realize their greed has already decided the next move. Back at Xiaoyong's fortress, a far more personal crisis is unfolding inside the medical wing. Everyone gathers near the treatment room where Chang Yi has remained isolated since his infection. Xiaoyong and the roommates face the painful truth that Chang Yi's condition has progressed beyond ordinary treatment. The infected student roars and strains against his restraints as the mutation takes control. Zhang Qi and the others struggle to accept that their friend no longer recognizes them. Yiming breaks the silence by declaring that Chang Yi must be eliminated. Xiaoyong says nothing and studies Yiming to see how much conviction stands behind those words. Zhang Qi turns on Yiming and demands to know how he can speak so coldly. The other roommates defend Chang Yi as their brother and refuse to abandon him without trying. Unable to find another solution, they turn toward Xiaoyong and ask him to decide. Xiaoyong draws a blade and forces everyone to confront what Yiming's suggestion actually requires. He places it into Yiming's hands and tells him to carry out his own judgment. Xiaoyong refuses to let Yiming demand Chang Yi's death while someone else bears the responsibility. With the decision placed directly before him, Yiming begins trembling and cannot move. Xiaoyong presses him to accept responsibility, but his earlier certainty has already disappeared. Before the standoff continues, Zhang Qi reaches forward and takes the blade from Yiming. The entire room falls silent as Zhang Qi accepts the weapon and looks toward his infected friend. Zhang Qi says he will do it, choosing to carry the burden nobody else can face. With the decision now his, Zhang Qi grips the blade while Chang Yi struggles behind him. Xiaoyong warns that once Zhang Qi acts, he will have to live with the choice forever. Zhang Qi looks toward Xiaoyong and finally understands that his resolve is being tested. That determination earns a quiet laugh from Xiaoyong while Chang Yi continues roaring from the bed. Zhang Qi steps closer and forces himself to face the friend he may have to lose. He raises the blade with both hands and prepares to accept the burden himself. Zhang Yi bares his teeth without showing any sign that he recognizes Zhang Qi. Before the strike falls, Xiaoyong catches Zhang Qi's wrist and stops him. The sudden intervention leaves Zhang Qi confused after everything Xiaoyong just made him confront. Xiaoyong orders everyone outside after noticing that Chang Yi's condition is not an ordinary infection. The system identifies Chang Yi as an extremely rare mutated variant with abilities worth investigating. Once the others leave, the medical room becomes quiet except for Chang Yi's strained breathing. The mutated man sits upright and growls at Xiaoyong without immediately attacking him. That small amount of restraint proves that something inside Changye is still responding. Instead of eliminating him, Xiaoyong decides to give the rare mutant an important task. Elsewhere in the city, the peaceful sky-high streets that are becoming more dangerous by the minute. A black car tears around an empty intersection as its driver desperately tries to maintain control. The vehicle crashes beside the road and begins smoking from the damaged front end. A long-haired survivor climbs out furious and disoriented, though he cannot afford to stop moving. He tells himself that his destination is close without noticing the infected figure approaching behind him. The creature rushes him from behind and catches him before he can properly react. They struggle beside the ruined car as the survivor narrowly keeps the infected away. Adrenaline takes over and he throws the attacker hard enough to create some distance. His relief disappears when several more infected begin closing in from every direction. With the road blocked, he reaches inside the car and grabs the nearest tool he can use. The survivor fights back with everything he has and forces the first attacker away. One desperate exchange turns into an exhausting struggle against the entire group surrounding him. His exhausted breaths become frustration when he realizes this street still refuses to give him a break. He remains standing after the fight, but more infected are already moving toward the noise. With his strength fading, the survivor forces himself onward toward the fortress in the distance. Inside the compound, Xiaoyong has prepared several infected for the group's first real survival exercise. He opens the side entrance and leads everyone outside before their nerves can change their minds. Zhang Qi, Shanshan and the others follow him, carrying basic equipment and very little experience. Shanshan immediately discovers that protective gear was apparently designed with comfort listed as optional. Xiaoyong explains that better equipment is useless until they learn to remain calm under pressure. A lone infected waits across the courtyard while the inexperienced group gathers behind their leader. Everyone claims they are ready, though their expression suggests several private disagreements with that statement. The infected notices them and charges before anyone has time to reconsider the exercise. Xiaoyong orders the group to protect one another and maintain control instead of panicking. He intercepts the first rush and leaves the creature exposed for his teammates to handle. With the opening created, Xiaoyong gives a quick correction and orders everyone to work together. The classmate wearing glasses commits to his first attack with far more confidence than experience. His wild effort barely slows the infected and leaves his hands aching from the impact. Xiaoyong explains that blind force will only exhaust them if they cannot control their movements. The infected surges forward and grabs the student before he can retreat to safety. The terrified classmate freezes as the creature closes the remaining distance. Xiaoyong calls Zhang Qi forward since his teammate needs immediate support. Zhang Qi moves behind the infected and commits without hesitating this time. His strike finally disrupts the creature long enough for the others to recover. The entire group presses forward together instead of leaving one person to handle the threat alone. Their successful teamwork gives Zhang Qi a brief moment of confidence after everything with Changye. Xiaoyong remains calm while another infected quietly approaches from behind to test their awareness. Zhang Qi notices the danger first and shouts a warning across the courtyard. The creature rushes forward while everyone expects Xiaoyong to be caught off guard. Without even turning completely, Xiaoyong stops the attacker before it can reach him. He reminds the group that lowering their guard early can erase every good decision they made before it. The embarrassed survivors accept the lesson and refocus on everything still moving around them. Nearby, the exhausted long-haired survivor reaches the fortress and hides behind a concrete barrier. He recognizes Xiaoyong in the courtyard and struggles to understand how much the young man has changed. The training commands around the parked vehicle confirm that Xiaoyong is leading the entire group. Watching from a distance, the survivor realizes these people are deliberately confronting the infected. He peeks around the vehicle and wonders how Xiaoyong's crew can hunt creatures everyone else fears. Neither he nor the trainees notice the glowing eyes watching from beneath the vehicle. The woman left outside during the failed ambush has returned as an infected creature. Her hand shoots forward and closes around the survivor's ankle before he senses her presence. The sudden pull tears him away from cover and sends him crashing onto the ground. He looks down in horror as the hidden infected rises directly beneath him. The woman lunges with a roar before Xiaoyong's group realizes another fight has already begun. The infected woman pounces on Zhang Shengzhe. Before he can escape from beside the vehicle, her attack nearly reaches his throat while Shengzhe struggles desperately to push her away. A shot from Xiaoyong drops the infected woman before she can finish the attack. Shengzhe shoves the body aside and scrambles backward while struggling to catch his breath. Xiaoyong recognizes Zhang Shengzhe immediately and demands to know why he came to the fortress. Shengzhe recognizes him as well. The relief quickly gives way to desperation. Before hearing the explanation, Xiaoyong notices a suspicious wound on Shengzhe's arm. The danger had 2 eyes, and that there were no tentacles coming out of her beautiful tentacles coming out of her mo tended to pieces. Xiaoyong raises his weapon and calmly tells Shengzhe that he has been bitten. Shang-Jie grabs the weapon and begs Brother Yang to hear him out before making any decision. The frightened man begins crying as the fate awaiting him finally becomes impossible to ignore. He reveals that the gang is holding his wife and child hostage to force his cooperation. Shang-Jie insists he never wanted to betray Xiaoyang and only obeyed to protect his family. He begs Xiaoyang to rescue them before their captors give them a fate worse than his. Although Shang-Jie helped the gang target him, Xiaoyang understands that the betrayal came from desperation. After considering everything, he slowly lowers the weapon instead of ending Shang-Jie's life. The fortress has plenty of room, and bringing in another family could strengthen the growing community. The system makes the rescue even more valuable by presenting Xiaoyang with another mission. Saving Shang-Jie's wife and child will earn 25 points if Xiaoyang reaches them in time. He promises that Xiao Li and Shuai Shuai will be protected no matter what happens next. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Shang-Jie bows and swears he could never repay Xiaoyang in this lifetime. Once his family is safe, Shang-Jie asks Brother Yang to finish him before the infection takes control. He refuses to become another monster that could hurt the people he is trying to protect. Xiaoyang remains silent while deciding whether Shang-Jie deserves one final chance to act for himself. Instead of killing him, Xiaoyang tells Shan to bring a bicycle from the storeroom. Shang-Jie questions the decision, but Xiaoyang only warns that he has very little time remaining. Understanding what that means, Shang-Jie gives him a grateful smile before preparing to leave. He races away from the fortress alone and pedals back toward the city. Every remaining thought is focused on reaching his wife before the infection finishes changing him. One eye begins glowing red as Shang-Jie fights to maintain control over his own body. Xiaoyang watches him disappear while the others remain uncertain whether they will ever see him again. With the immediate crisis settled, the group gathers the defeated infected for safe disposal. Xiaoyang lights the prepared pile before the bodies can become another problem around the fortress. The survivors watch the flames rise while exhaustion settles over everyone who completed the training. Their successful cleanup completes the street cleaning mission and raises Xiaoyang's balance to 28 points. He praises them for handling isolated infected but warns that none are ready for a real horde. With that lesson delivered, Xiaoyang orders the entire group to follow him back inside. Everyone enters the warehouse while wondering what their leader plans to show them next. Xiaoyang calls Shangbo forward and prepares to leave the fortress under his supervision. He places the base's safety in Shangbo's hands until the rescue mission is finished. Shangbo worries about the chaos outside and questions whether Xiaoyang truly intends to travel alone. Zhangqi and his classmates immediately volunteer to accompany him into the city. Xiaoyang refuses and tells Shangbo that protecting everyone inside is the more important responsibility. He loads his vehicle with the supplies he may need and begins the rescue alone. During the drive, Xiaoyang checks the system store and discovers that every available slot is empty. The store only updates after payment, proving even the apocalypse has somehow discovered convenience fees. With no better option, he spends 2 points to manually refresh the available rewards. 3 new choices appear, including survival supplies and a powerful black technology box. The next refresh already costs twice as much, warning Xiaoyang not to waste points carelessly. He chooses the black technology box despite its heavy 20-point price. The purchase leaves him with only 6 points, but could provide an advantage during the rescue. His vehicle continues racing toward Shang-Jie's neighborhood as the city grows quieter around him. Opening the box rewards Xiaoyang with a serum capable of greatly increasing his physical strength. Since he will be entering hostile territory alone, he decides to use the enhancement himself. Xiaoyang briefly studies the unfamiliar reward before trusting the system that provided it. He administers the serum while continuing toward the apartment complex. The enhancement spreads through his body with enough pain to nearly force him off balance. When the process ends, his physical attributes have climbed far beyond those of an ordinary person. Xiaoyang finally reaches the tall apartment building where Zhang Shengzhou's family lives. Inside their home, the child's toys remain untouched while danger moves through the surrounding rooms. Xiao Li comforts the frightened Shuai Shui and promises that his father will handle everything. 2 of the gang's men enter the room before she can find a safer place to hide. Xiao Li demands to know what they are doing as their intentions become increasingly threatening. The men seize her while treating the captive family as entertainment rather than leverage. Xiao Li struggles and cries for help as Xiaoyang's rescue becomes a race against time. The gang restrains Xiao Li while Shuai Shui desperately clings to his mother. Several men crowd the apartment, leaving the captive family no safe way to resist. Their ponytailed leader grows irritated when his men forget why they came. He pulls the stocky attacker aside and orders him to control himself. The underling complains since he believes their captives are already completely powerless. Their leader explains that harming Xiao Li now would leave Shangzhou with nothing left to protect. Once Shang-Jie is removed, the gang plans to return without fearing any resistance. The men accept the order and leave the room with their ugly intentions unchanged. Inside the darkness, Xiao Li holds Shui Shui close and tries to quiet his sobs. Outside, infected wander beneath the moon while abandoned vehicles choke the city streets. Xiao Yang keeps driving as 13 stamina points carry him far beyond an ordinary person. He threads through the abandoned vehicles until the remaining gaps begin disappearing. The next intersection is completely blocked by wrecks and roaming infected. Xiaoyong stops the car after realizing the vehicle can take him no farther. With his destination still ahead, he decides to finish the journey on foot. A sudden sound behind him warns that he is no longer alone. 2 infected rush from the street before Xiaoyong can move away. He slips beneath the first attack and turns the creature's momentum against it. A quick counterstrike knocks the second attacker off balance. Xiaoyong lifts the first infected and throws it directly into the other. The collision sends both creatures backward and opens the road ahead. Blue system energy gathers around his hand as Xiaoyong summons a weapon. The short blade materializes, giving him a faster answer to the remaining attackers. Xiaoyong charges forward before the infected can surround him again. A rapid exchange clears the street and brings the brief ambush to an end. He realizes the enhancement has made his strength and reflexes overwhelming against ordinary infected. His improved hearing activates next and separates distant movement from the city's background noise. Xiaoyong detects living people some distance away and changes direction toward them. Inside a nearby store, several survivors realize infected is surrounded every exit. They drag heavier shelves toward the entrance and desperately reinforce their barricade. A terrified young man named Zixuan asks his father whether they will die there. Fear finally overwhelms him and leaves the young man crying openly. Captain Li snaps at the group to stop panicking before they make things worse. Even he privately wonders whether this store will become their final shelter. Dark shapes gather beyond the glass while the survivors wait for the first breach. A powerful impact suddenly shakes the storefront and sends everyone stumbling backward. An infected body crashes through the entrance and tears open their barricade. The survivors scatter as shells and loose debris topple around them. The body slams onto the store floor while everyone waits for another attack. Instead, the damaged entrance falls silent and no infected follow it inside. Captain Li orders Zixuan and his father to move the barricade aside. They clear the entrance carefully and keep every movement as quiet as possible. Outside, the group discovers that every infected surrounding the store has already been defeated. Captain Li leads everyone into the street while they search for whoever saved them. Zixuan immediately decides the mysterious fighter must be some powerful mutant. His father questions that theory, but admits an ordinary person could not accomplish this. Captain Li blames the mutant idea on too many comics and Zixuan's terrible grades. The others remind him that roasting the kid can wait until they reach safety. They begin moving toward their base with everyone watching a different direction. Captain Li suddenly spots someone ahead and orders the entire group to stop. Xiaoyong stands in their path and calmly studies the armed survivors approaching him. Zixuan nervously challenges the stranger, unsure whether he is human or infected. Captain Li examines Xiaoyong and notices he looks far too composed to be ordinary. Xiaoyong answers calmly and makes it clear that he is still human. Relief spreads through the group once Captain Li confirms that he is another survivor. The captain invites Xiaoyong along and insists nobody should travel through the city alone. Xiaoyong listens while Captain Li explains that survival now depends on remaining together. Their destination is Rongxiang Garden near Jinyu Mansion, directly along Xiaoyong's route. Captain Li confidently promises that their numbers and experience will keep Xiaoyong protected. Xiaoyong can only smile at survivors offering to protect the man who secretly saved them. Still heading toward Rongxiang Garden, Xiaoyong continues through the deserted streets beside Captain Li's survivor group. Captain Li asks whether Xiaoyong is traveling through the city to meet someone important. After hearing the answer, the captain begins preparing him for the worst possible outcome. He warns that the person Xiaoyong seeks may already be dead by the time they arrive. Even if that person survived the infected, Captain Li believes hostile survivors could have found them first. Xiaoyong asks what kind of people Captain Li has encountered since the outbreak began. The captain remembers a group of raiders who attacked them and killed several of his companions. He advises everyone to remain cautious, since another survivor can be more dangerous than an infected stranger. Zixuan suddenly screams a warning after noticing movement directly behind Captain Li. An infected man lunges from the darkness before the captain can fully turn around. Captain Li reacts in time and drops the attacker with a single shot. He steadies himself after realizing one careless second nearly ended the entire journey. The noise echoes through the street and draws a much larger crowd toward them. Captain Li forces himself to stay calm and searches the surrounding road for shelter. He spots an abandoned bus and immediately chooses it as their best chance to escape. The entire group sprints toward the vehicle while the infected rapidly close behind them. Xiaoyong follows with a calm smile while everyone else treats the bus as their final chance. He reaches the entrance as Captain Li holds the door open against the approaching crowd. Xiaoyong slips inside before the nearest infected can reach the steps. Captain Lee braces the entrance and orders him to check every seat for hidden infected. Sichuan looks outside and realizes the commotion is still drawing more creatures toward them. Captain Lee sees the first infected faces pressing against the bus windows. More hands slam against the glass until the entire vehicle begins shaking around them. The survivors realize their new shelter has also become a cage surrounded on every side. One infected forces open a gap in the entrance while Captain Lee struggles to hold it shut. Xiaoyong calmly places one hand against the door and takes over the pressure. His enhanced strength slams the entrance closed before the creature can break through. Captain Lee stares in disbelief at the power Xiaoyong just displayed so casually. Xiaoyong proposes sealing the entrance and defending through the windows instead of fighting outside. Captain Lee accepts the plan and quickly moves everyone into position. The survivors break several windows and prepare to confront the crowd from behind the bus walls. The infected reach through the openings almost immediately and force everyone to stand their ground. One creature pushes its head inside and tests their courage at dangerously close range. Captain Lee drives it backward and proves the plan can work if nobody freezes. The others help force the attacker outside before another can take its place. Captain Lee checks his remaining ammunition and realizes it will not last through the entire crowd. Xiaoyong offers him another weapon without explaining where it came from. The captain is stunned when Xiaoyong produces a crossbow in the middle of the crisis. Xiaoyong claims he found it earlier and passes it over before the next rush begins. The replacement immediately helps Captain Lee push back another infected at the window. Working together from the bus, the survivors steadily drive the remaining attackers away. When the street finally falls quiet, everyone steps outside among the defeated crowd. Zixuan celebrates them as the chosen children of the apocalypse after surviving exactly one major fight. Xiaoyong remains cautious since one victory does not make the ruined city any safer. Back at the fortress, Shanshan quietly hopes Xiaoyong's rescue mission is going smoothly. Shangbo gathers Zhang Qi's group and organizes the final duties for the night. The glasses-wearing roommate teases Yiming for volunteering so eagerly to handle the night watch. Yiming sharply tells him to stop talking and mind his own business. The classmate backs away though Yiming's sudden dedication still feels suspicious. Shangbo sends everyone to rest and leaves Yiming responsible for watching the fortress. The watchtower settles beneath the moon as the compound gradually becomes silent. Once everyone appears asleep, Yiming decides the moment he has been waiting for has arrived. He abandons the tower and heads inside before anyone can notice his missing post. In his room, Shangbo sleeps with an important key resting beside his pillow. That key becomes the real target behind Yiming's sudden enthusiasm for guard duty. Shangbo continues sleeping while Yiming quietly approaches the bed. Yiming peers through the doorway and prepares to make his move without realizing Xiaoyong already distrusts him. While the others are distracted, Lu Yiming quietly reaches toward the old man's bedside. His target is the armory key lying within easy reach. The old man wakes just before Lu can slip away unnoticed. He immediately realizes what Lu is stealing and demands an explanation. Lu answers with a punch, choosing the key over any remaining loyalty. Before anyone can react, he bolts down the corridor with the key. The commotion draws the others out as they demand to know what happened. The injured elder confirms that Lu Yiming stole the only key to the armory. Everyone rushes after him before he can reach the weapons first. Lu kicks a pile of furniture down the stairs to slow their pursuit. The blockade buys him a few precious seconds while the others scramble over it. During his escape, he notices the infirmary and suddenly changes direction. The restrained infected patient inside gives Lu a far nastier idea. He enters and studies the man struggling against the bindings. Instead of helping, Lu moves close enough to provoke the infected prisoner. The prisoner surges upright and tears free with more strength than Lu expected. Lu realizes the restraints were already loose enough to fail. That works perfectly for him since the infected man can now become a distraction. The pursuing survivors race toward Lu without knowing what he released ahead. The silver-haired man spots the infected patient blocking the corridor. For a moment, the entire group freezes as the threat turns toward them. With every weapon locked away, the woman asks how they are supposed to stop him. The elder keeps everyone focused and decides they will overpower him together. All four charge before the infected man can build momentum. The silver-haired survivor reaches him first and attacks from behind. He locks down the infected man's head while the others close in. Working together, they finally control his arms and force him backward. The elder orders them to return the patient to the infirmary immediately. They shove him through the doorway before his strength can spike again. The silver-haired man slams the infirmary door shut and seals him inside. Even after the danger is contained, the elder cannot shake his suspicion. The others admit the infected man felt strangely easy to subdue this time. That is when the elder realizes Lu has probably reached the armory already. Sure enough, Lu opens the storage room and searches for something he can use. His victory feels smaller when he discovers only one rifle was left behind. One weapon is still enough for Lu to turn the corridor into a hostage situation. The silver-haired survivor demands that Lu lower it before anyone gets hurt. Lu refuses and keeps the rifle trained on the group to control their next move. The elder pleads with him to stop before his betrayal becomes irreversible. Behind the infirmary window, the infected prisoner watches the standoff in silence. The sight of fresh panic triggers another violent change in his eyes. While everyone faces Lu, the patient quietly grips a sharp medical tool inside the room. Elsewhere in the darkened city, Zhang Shengjie arrives at the residential complex. The security officers warn that the maze of buildings gives mutated zombies plenty of places to hide. They identify Building 8 as Zhang's destination and point him toward the entrance. Zhang accepts the warning with a calm smile and heads in alone. The officers admit Jinyu Mansion could be packed with zombies and wonder whether he understands the risk. Neither man likes sending him inside, but the assignment leaves them little choice. Within the powerless complex, trapped survivors have also lost every phone signal. One suited man dismisses Zhang Shengjie's mission as his responsibility and nothing more. A larger thug claims he has waited long enough and wants to take his frustration out on someone. The group assumes Zhang is already dead outside, leaving nobody strong enough to interfere. Across the room, a terrified mother shields her child as the men's intentions become clear. Their long-haired companion agrees, treating the apocalypse as permission to abandon every rule. He coldly warns the woman that refusing them will only make things worse. Before they can continue, someone notices every zombie downstairs has already been killed. Upstairs, one of the intruders steps into the stairwell after hearing movement outside the apartment. He assumes a rescue team has finally reached the building and moves closer to investigate. That confidence disappears when he suddenly senses someone standing behind him. The lookout freezes as an unfamiliar presence blocks the doorway. Jiang Xiaoyong emerges from the darkness before the man can warn anyone inside. Inside the apartment, a child's untouched toys reveal the family life these men interrupted. Shengjie's wife shields her son and orders every intruder to leave immediately. The men only laugh, convinced nobody in the building can force them out. One thug grabs the boy first and uses him to break his mother's resistance. When she tries to protect him, another man strikes her without hesitation. The boy is not decide, but seeing his mother threatened, pushes him back onto his feet. Terrified and crying, he still promises to fight them with everything he has. His courage earns him another brutal shove that sends him across the room. Even from the floor, he calls them bad people and demands that they release his mother. Before they can punish him again, their missing lookout crashes through the doorway. The boy stares at the fallen man and realizes someone else has entered the apartment. A figure approaches from the dark hallway and calmly calls out to him. Zhang steps into view and confirms that Zhang Shengjie is the child's father. The shaken boy can barely answer, but the name immediately earns Zhang his attention. His mother remains guarded, unsure whether the stranger has truly come to help them. One thug strikes her again and demands that the family answer Jiang's question. The largest man grabs her by the head, believing fear will keep everyone obedient. Only now do the intruders notice the destroyed entrance and realize Zhang forced his way inside. The danger convinces them that this supposed kid is far stronger than he first appears. Rather than retreat, the men spread out and prepare to overwhelm him together. 3 of them charge while another keeps Shengjie's wife trapped in his arms. The first attacker closes in, already sensing that something about Jiang is deeply wrong. Zhang stops him with one hand pressed directly against his face. A casual throw sends the man flying behind him while Jiang barely breaks his stride. The attacker crashes down before the others can understand what just happened. The remaining brute stares at Zhang and struggles to comprehend what kind of person he is facing. Zhang answers with a single kick that removes him from the fight. Back at the shelter, Lu Yiming gives the survivors one final order to move aside. The elderly leader tells everyone to cooperate for now while he searches for an opening. Their hesitation makes Lu even more nervous, and his control begins slipping with every second. He raises the stolen rifle and mistakes the weapon in his hands for absolute authority. The younger survivors shout for him to stop before he does something irreversible. A strange noise from the infirmary interrupts the standoff and pulls everyone's attention toward the doors. The locked mechanism begins turning from inside, even though nobody there should possess the key. The doors open and Shenchong walks into the corridor under his own power. The survivors realize Chen somehow unlocked the infirmary himself despite his infected condition. Lu turns toward him while Chen's sudden appearance silences the entire corridor. Chen's red eyes reveal that the infection has transformed him into something far more dangerous. Panic takes over as Lu points the rifle at Chen and orders him to remain still. Lu pulls the trigger, but the weapon responds with nothing more than an empty click. The rifle is jammed at the exact moment he depends on it most. Chen lunges before Lu can fix the weapon or escape. Lu screams for help as Chen overwhelms him in front of the stunned survivors. When Chen rises again, his changed appearance leaves everyone too frightened to approach. He grabs Lu and drags him back toward the dark infirmary. The others can only watch, unable to understand why Chen has ignored every one of them. Chen pauses and forces himself to breathe, fighting to regain control over his infected body. The survivors keep their distance as the corridor finally falls silent again. Rather than attacking them, Chen reaches back and removes the key from the infirmary lock. He lifts it over his shoulder and prepares to return it to the group. Chen throws the key across the corridor where the survivors can recover it. The infirmary doors slam shut again, sealing Chen and Lu inside together. Everyone remains frozen, realizing Chen protected them even after the infection changed him. With the apartment secured, Jiang stands among the defeated intruders while Xiaoshui remains beside his mother. He calls Xiaoshui forward, making it clear that the boy must face what just happened. His mother immediately asks what Jiang intends to make her frightened son do. Jiang refuses to soften his expression and firmly repeats his order for Xiaoshui to come closer. After a brief hesitation, the boy pulls away from his mother and steps forward. Jiang places a blade in his hands and tells him to take it. He orders Xiaoshui to end the threat posed by the men who attacked his family. The attackers lose every trace of confidence and desperately beg the child to spare them. His mother protests that Xiaoshui is still only a child. Jiang answers that the apocalypse has already taken away the protection his age once gave him. He tells Xiaoshui to gather his courage and remember why these men cannot be trusted. The boy recalls their cruel smiles and how easily they hurt his mother. Tears fill his eyes, but his fear slowly gives way to anger. With one desperate cry, Xiaoshui charges before his courage can disappear again. When it is over, he stands trembling while the attackers can no longer threaten his family. His shaken mother softly calls his name and sees how much the experience has changed him. Xiaoshui asks whether people this cruel could have hurt his father too. Jiang answers honestly and confirms that weakness could place anyone they love in danger. The blade slips from Xiaoshui's hand as he breaks down in his mother's arms. He refuses to remain inside the apartment after learning how dangerous the outside world has become. Jiang leaves the final decision to his mother instead of forcing either of them to follow. Moments later, all three leave the apartment together and move through the complex. Xiaoshui glances back at the defeated men and struggles to process what survival demanded from him. Outside, the boy hesitantly calls to Jiang before he can walk too far ahead. His mother also asks Jiang to wait so they can explain where they need to go. Jiang stops and looks back, willing to hear what she has decided. When she mentions Rongsheng Garden, he confirms that it is exactly where they are heading. At Rongsheng Garden, raiders demand the residents' supplies and order every woman under 40 to surrender. Their ultimatum reaches the third floor, where the remaining survivors have gathered. The armed gang fills the stairwell and prepares to force its demands on the building. Their uniformed leader gives the residents 10 minutes to cooperate before his men move in. A frightened woman watches uneasily while the suited survivor behind her prepares to resist. The suited woman openly condemns the gang's disgusting demands despite the danger around her. The leader dismisses her objection and orders his followers to continue applying pressure. Outside, several raiders discuss dragging the residents out if they refuse to cooperate. Their leader raises his weapon with a grin, convinced fear has already won. Jiang reaches the building with Xiaoshui and his mother following carefully behind him. He keeps them back while calmly studying the armed men surrounding the entrance. Jiang asks Xiaoshui whether these raiders resembled the men who threatened his mother. Inside the building, the uniformed leader senses trouble and warns everyone to remain careful. He crouches beside the window and searches the courtyard for whoever has arrived. One glance reveals that Jiang's group is far better equipped than ordinary survivors. A sudden impact near the window forces the leader down before he can finish assessing them. The rest of the gang turns in confusion as the unexpected attack reaches their floor. Jiang's next attack cuts through their formation and sends the raiders scrambling away from the windows. More strikes tear through their position and knock several men completely off balance. Looking down into the courtyard, the uniformed leader finally recognizes the lone young man below. His confidence vanishes when he realizes Jiang is the terrifying kid he encountered before. The raiders barely recognize Jiang before he attacks from the courtyard and forces them away from the windows. The first attacker drops before the others understand how accurate their opponent is. Another raider hides behind a tree as his fallen companion lands nearby. The remaining men attack wildly, hoping their superior numbers will force Jiang to retreat. He races across the courtyard while every shot tears into the ground behind him. Jiang's calm smile makes it obvious this group threatened the worst possible person. One surviving raider crouches behind a utility box and tries keeping Jiang pinned down. Jiang answers with a barrage that begins tearing apart the man's only cover. Trapped and sweating, the raider curses Jiang while searching desperately for an escape. He rises from cover and keeps attacking even though panic has already destroyed his aim. Jiang returns fire without slowing down and immediately retakes control of the exchange. The counterattack catches the raider exposed and forces him away from his damaged cover. When Jiang's weapon falls quiet, the man assumes he has finally run out of ammunition. That mistake restores his confidence and sends him charging forward to finish the fight himself. He closes the distance and aims directly at Jiang, convinced victory is finally within reach. Jiang responds at point-blank range before the attacker can complete his move. He catches the man's wrist and turns the weapon away from himself. Standing face-to-face, the raider finally understands the enormous gap between them. One decisive counter ends the struggle before the man can make another move. The final gunman collapses, leaving Jiang alone in the suddenly quiet courtyard. Jiang checks the defeated attacker and collects whatever useful equipment remains. He enters the building where several remaining gang members wait along the dark hallway. One glance tells Jiang that none of them intends to surrender peacefully. The men rush in together, hoping numbers can accomplish what their weapons could not. Moments later, the hallway is cleared and Jiang calls every hidden resident outside. The survivors cautiously emerge while Xiao Shuai proudly praises Uncle Yang's performance. The system offers Jiang 25 points for recruiting 5 survivors from Rongxiang Gardens. With that new goal active, Jiang questions Officer Li about the nearby settlement called Bikwashan. The name immediately changes Li's expression and confirms the place is well known. He summons 2 yellow-uniformed scouts who possess more information about the southern district. They describe Bikwashan as an organized gang with plenty of fighters and resources. The description reminds Jiang of Li Shuxiang and Kui Jing's southern settlement from his previous life. He asks whether Bikwashan is currently the only major settlement operating in the south. The scouts explain that smaller groups once existed, but Bikwashan gradually absorbed or eliminated them. That history removes Jiang's final doubt and confirms he has found the faction he remembers. Officer Li notices his interest and asks what Jiang plans to do next. Before answering, Jiang searches the defeated raiders and recovers several spare magazines. He gives the recovered equipment to Li so the residents can defend their building. With proper protection, Jiang believes another small gang will no longer overwhelm them. The scouts warn that Bikwashan is different and far too powerful for one person to challenge. Officer Li also wonders whether Jiang truly intends to confront the entire settlement alone. Jiang explains that blindly taking their territory was never his real objective. He is building a stronghold at Old Tea Leaf City and needs capable people to protect it. After telling everyone to stay safe, Jiang leaves with Xiao Shuai and his mother. Elsewhere, a man resting in darkness opens his eyes as the focus shifts toward Bikwashan. A lone guard watches the surrounding streets from a rooftop above the settlement. The grim display at Bikwashan's entrance reveals how its leaders maintain control through fear. Inside the compound, 4 leaders gather around a table to review their expanding territory. The red-haired leader asks whether Jinyu Entertainment Center has already been secured. The heavyset leader insists he sent people an hour ago and expects them back soon. Another leader warns that Jinyu Mansion has powerful connections and cannot be seized carelessly. The heavyset man dismisses the concern, treating caution as unnecessary fear. The red-haired leader reminds him that he has not completed a single assigned task successfully. He laughs off the criticism and claims that everything is being handled perfectly. A breathless messenger arrives outside before that confidence can last much longer. The messenger approaches the heavyset leader and struggles to deliver the urgent news. He reports that every man sent to Rongxiang Gardens was defeated by supposedly ordinary civilians. Furious over the failure, the leader demands to know who among those residents can handle weapons. After protecting Rongxiang Gardens, Jiang finally drives back into the Old Tea Leaf City stronghold. The young woman recognizes the engine immediately and excitedly announces that Brother Yang has returned. Completing a rescue mission earns Jiang 25 points and raises his total to 36. Grandpa and the others welcome him back with visible relief after the chaos during his absence. Jiang introduces Xia Shuai and his mother as 2 new survivors who will be staying with them. The young woman is surprised by the unexpected arrivals, but nobody objects to giving them shelter. Jiang asks Zhang Qi to settle them into their rooms before meeting everyone at the infirmary. Once they regroup, Grandpa asks whether Jiang expected Lu Yiming to betray them from the beginning. Jiang picks up the abandoned weapon and admits he never knew exactly what Lu would attempt. Zhang Qi examines it closely while the bespectacled survivor waits for Jiang's explanation. Jiang only knew that Zhang Qi's supposed friend was selfish enough to become dangerous under pressure. When Zhang Qi removes the magazine, he immediately notices something unusual about the ammunition. Every round had been replaced with rubber ammunition before Jiang left the stronghold. Grandpa realizes the hostage situation looked deadly, but Jiang had quietly removed Lu's greatest advantage. With that settled, Jiang calls Chen Chong forward and identifies him as an extremely rare mutant. He asks Chen to blink 3 times if he can still understand human speech. Chen follows the instruction exactly and proves that his mind survived the transformation. Jiang explains that rare mutants possess far greater intelligence and potential than ordinary infected creatures. Chen is exceptional even among them since he retained awareness recognition and the ability to learn. The survivors remain tense as Chen stands over Lu without showing any interest in attacking them. Chen struggles to communicate, but even his rough response shows deliberate thought. He raises 2 fingers and answers Jiang through a clear controlled gesture. That response confirms Xiang's theory and leaves him quietly satisfied with Chen's progress. Chen drags Lu away while every survivor instinctively gives their new companion plenty of space. Zhangqi cautiously points at Chen and orders him to stop moving. Chen halts, immediately proving that he understands commands from people besides Zhang. He leans toward Zhangqi with an irritated expression that reveals a very human personality beneath the infection. Zhangqi and his bespectacled friend freeze after realizing Chen knows perfectly well that he is being tested. Zhangqi attempts one reckless reflex test, but Chen avoids him before the motion is even complete. Chen walks away without retaliating, leaving Zhangqi stunned by both his speed and restraint. The system rewards Zhang with 10 points for unlocking the hidden achievement of gaining a mutant companion. Back in his room, Zhang immediately opens the system shop to see whether anything new appeared. With 46 points available, he decides that testing 2 inexpensive boxes is worth the gamble. Zhang redeems 1 life-saving box and 1 defensive equipment box for 10 points total. The defensive box produces an exceptionally powerful long-range weapon despite being only level 1. The system also reminds him that 5 survivors from Rongshan Gardens still need recruiting. Later that night, the stronghold quietly clears away the last evidence of Lu Yiming's betrayal. By morning, Zhang has gathered everyone in the courtyard for their first organized defense lesson. He makes daily practice mandatory since strong walls mean little when nobody inside can protect them. The survivors begin with simple targets and slowly replace nervous panic with actual control. Zhang stays beside Grandpa and carefully guides him through the unfamiliar training. Once practice ends, he calls the masked Chen over for a separate supply run. Their search leads to an abandoned bus surrounded by infected creatures on an empty road. Zhang and Chen clear the area quickly before checking whether the vehicle can still be used. One infected driver suddenly lunges from the bus as Zhang approaches the front compartment. Chen reacts first and removes the final threat before Jiang needs to intervene. With the bus secured, Zhang offers Chen the key and tells him to handle the driving. Chen stops Zhang's hand for a moment, still uncertain about the arrangement. Zhang reminds him that the mask and restraints must remain whenever unfamiliar survivors are nearby. Understanding the reason, Chen accepts the condition and prepares to follow Zhang's plan. Meanwhile, Boss Lu's long-awaited reinforcements finally arrive in a truck packed with men. Seeing the larger force restores his confidence and convinces him that Rongshan Gardens cannot resist again. Boss Lu orders everyone forward, sending the convoy directly toward the survivors Zhang just protected. While Boss Lu attacks Rongshan Gardens, Zhang and Chen encounter another infected crowd during their return trip. One infected creature finally notices the approaching bus when the engine is already dangerously close. Chen drives straight through the group and clears the road without losing any speed. The bus continues weaving through abandoned traffic toward the residential complex. Back at Building 8, the survivors have no idea that Boss Lu's reinforcements are approaching. For once, the group can sit together and quietly share the food Zhang left behind. That brief peace ends when the brown-haired survivor hears several vehicles entering the courtyard. The uniformed guard stops everyone from rushing outside and moves to investigate alone. One look through the window confirms the newcomers are armed and clearly not here to negotiate. Boss Lu's larger force identifies Building 8 and prepares to surround its entrance. Once the target is confirmed, Boss Lu orders every raider to move forward. The uniformed guard returns and warns the others that yesterday's attackers have brought reinforcements. One defender remains confident since Zhang left them enough equipment to fight back. The guard reminds him that they are badly outnumbered and every attacker outside is armed. Rather than expose themselves early, the defenders wait until Boss Lu's men move closer. The raiders spread across the courtyard and begin attacking the upper floors. Watching from the window, the survivors realize how much force Boss Lu brought against them. A heavy barrage tears toward Building 8 and gives the defenders no safe opening. Glass bursts inward as the brown-haired survivor throws himself away from the window. Boss Lu pauses confidently and waits for fear to break the people hiding upstairs. Using a megaphone, he orders the residents to surrender before his men enter the building. A precise counterattack interrupts the warning and catches the long-haired raider beside him. The man drops immediately, proving the defenders are far better equipped than Boss Lu expected. Another raider is struck before he can find somewhere safe to hide. The first weapon falls silent, forcing the defenders to reposition before the raiders recover. The uniformed guard takes over and keeps Boss Lu's group trapped across the courtyard. Boss Lu angrily demands to know where ordinary residents obtain such powerful equipment. The athletic raider hides behind a tree and nervously wonders what other surprises await them. Boss Lu orders everyone to hold position until his signal sends them forward together. One impatient man exposes himself too early and is immediately taken out of the advance. Ignoring the loss, Boss Lu begins counting down for the remaining raiders. At his command, the men abandon their cover and sprint across the open courtyard. Boss Lu remains behind them quietly, using his own followers to exhaust the defenders. The guard continues firing as several raiders are knocked down during the charge. Once the attacks stop, Boss Lu assumes the defenders have finally exhausted their ammunition. Upstairs, the empty weapon confirms that his calculation was unfortunately correct. Boss Lu and the surviving raiders rush toward their truck before the defenders can respond. The driver speeds away before one unlucky follower can even climb inside. A final shot knocks away the abandoned man's cap and sends him stumbling behind the truck. Boss Lu escapes the complex while his remaining men keep their heads down inside the vehicle. At that same moment, Zhang and Chen's bus reaches the nearby streets. Zhang hears the distant commotion and immediately realizes something happened near Rongshan Gardens. The fleeing raiders cross the same intersection and briefly notice the unfamiliar bus. Zhang watches their truck disappear and becomes certain the settlement was attacked. Chen pulls the bus to a stop outside the complex after Boss Lu's group has escaped. Zhang discovers the wounded raider they abandoned and recognizes a convenient source of information. Chen stares at the helpless man and begins growling as his infected hunger returns. Zhang notices the reaction and asks whether his mutant companion is hungry. Knowing what the raider helped do here, Zhang sees no reason to interfere. Chen's eyes change as the hunger overwhelms his remaining restraint. The mutant lunges before the terrified raider can drag himself away. Zhang walks toward Building 8 while Chen remains behind with the abandoned attacker. When Chen finally grows quiet, a strange new pattern becomes visible inside his red eye. Zhang surveys the defeated raiders and confirms that the Rongxiang defenders survived Boss Lu's attack. The brown-haired survivor spots brother Xiaoyong below and excitedly calls to him through the window. Zhang looks toward Building 8 and finds the residents waving from the upper floor. The uniformed guard rushes outside and asks whether Zhang defeated all these attackers himself. He proudly explains that Zhang's equipment allowed the residents to defend their building without him. A sudden noise behind them interrupts the reunion and immediately places everyone on alert. Heavy footsteps cross the courtyard as Chen Chong approaches the gathered survivors. His altered skin and vacant eyes make him look exactly like the creatures they fear. The uniformed guard raises his weapon and warns everyone that an infected man is approaching. Zhang calmly lowers the barrel and explains that Chen is part of his group. The guard repeats those words in disbelief while staring at the obvious mutant. The fallen raider near Chen makes Zhang's reassurance considerably harder for anyone to accept. They finally ask whether Zhang has somehow learned how to communicate with infected creatures. Zhang promises to explain everything once the group has safely boarded the bus. He sends Chen ahead to prepare the vehicle and the mutant follows the instruction without hesitation. Chen replaces his respirator and conceals the features that would terrify every stranger they meet. The Rongxiang survivors cautiously board while their masked driver waits beside the entrance. The brown-haired passenger grips a support pole and demands to know whether Chen is really driving. Zhang assures him that Chen can handle it, though even he finds the arrangement slightly amusing. Chen steps into the driver's compartment and prepares to carry the new recruits home. The bus surges through the empty streets with enough force to shake everyone inside. One aggressive turn leaves the uniformed guard wondering whether their driver understands the word gentle. Chen attempts another sentence, but the words still emerge rough and difficult to understand. Zhang tests his progress and realizes Chen can now respond with more than simple gestures. The latest evolution appears to be restoring Chen's tongue and slowly returning his ability to speak. With that promising development, the bus races back toward Old Tea Leaf City. Meanwhile, Boss Lu stands before Bikuishan's leaders and explains how completely his operation failed. He insists the Rongxiang residents possessed automatic weapons that nobody had warned him about. The red-haired leader questions how ordinary neighborhood guards could obtain equipment that advanced. Boss Lu desperately defends his report, but his nervous expression only makes him appear less convincing. Kai loses patience and knocks Boss Lu down for wasting so many men. Boss Lu struggles back onto his feet while swallowing both the pain and humiliation. Kai continues blaming him and makes it clear that another failure will not be tolerated, playing with his knife. Kai suggests dividing Boss Lu's remaining territory and resources among themselves. He takes the insult further by bringing up the woman waiting at Boss Lu's mansion. The leaders casually discuss treating Qingzi as shared property once Boss Lu loses his position. The red-haired leader addresses Kai with an approving smile instead of rejecting the suggestion. Outside the room, Boss Lu secretly listens as his supposed allies plan to take everything from him. His expression hardens when he realizes Bikuishan's leaders never considered him one of their own. Later, Boss Lu returns to the secluded mansion where Qingzi has been waiting. He storms inside and knocks furniture aside, prompting Qingzi to ask what happened. She moves closer and tries calming her furious husband before he loses control. Boss Lu pulls Qingzi against him and calls her name with sudden desperation. A trusted subordinate enters moments later and asks what orders Boss Lu has for him. Boss Lu quietly begins preparing a move against the same leaders who betrayed him. Listening behind him, Qingzi realizes her husband has decided to turn against Bikuishan. Back at Old Tea Leaf City, Chen drives the bus through the gates of Zhang's fortified compound. The Rongxiang survivors step outside and stare in amazement at what resembles a doomsday fortress. Recruiting 8 survivors exceeds the system's target and raises Zhang's balance to 66 points. After settling the newcomers, Zhang tells Chen to accompany him back into the southern district. The uniformed guard asks why Zhang would return when Bikuishan is already hunting him. Zhang calmly explains that he still has unfinished business to settle with those people. Inside his room, Zhang discovers that a level 2 high-tech supply crate costs 50 points. He selects the expensive crate and commits most of his balance to a single redemption. The purchase succeeds and leaves Jiang with 16 points as he waits to see whether the reward delivers. The final PDF page is a scanlation promotion and contains no story content. The level 2 black tech crate opens and rewards Jiang with a potion that increases his stamina by 20. Holding the enhancement in his hand, Jiang finally understands why this crate was so expensive. He injects the potion immediately, and a violent surge tears through his entire body. Once the pain fades, Jiang notices that even his smallest movements feel sharper and easier to control. A mosquito approaches from behind, but his improved senses catch the faint buzzing instantly. Jiang reaches back and traps the insect between his fingers before it can touch him. His enhanced vision can now follow every tiny movement of its wings. He casually flicks the mosquito away, satisfied that the potion improved far more than basic endurance. By sunset, the stronghold is prepared for Zhang and Shen's return to the southern district. The pair crosses the courtyard while the new defenders gather beside the bus to see them off. The uniformed guard checks Jiang's plan and asks whether he truly intends to confront Bikuishan again. He also praises Jiang's accuracy and promises the recruits will keep training while he is gone. Jiang receives a confident thumbs up, which is a major improvement from their earlier panic. With the farewell complete, he sends Chen aboard and follows him onto the bus. The vehicle rolls through the gates as darkness settles over Old Tea Leaf City. That night, Boss Lu confirms his inside contact is ready and orders his remaining men to move. Still furious over his humiliation, Liu marches out believing his secret plan will restore his position. A car suddenly appears ahead and floods the street with blinding headlights. Boss Lu and his followers shield their eyes as the vehicle stops directly in their path. Men spread across the road and surround Liu's group before anyone can escape. Several shadowed figures watch from inside the car while the trap closes outside. Liu senses that something has gone terribly wrong and demands an explanation. Dongshu steps forward from the opposing group with a weapon already in hand. Boss Liu recognizes his supposed ally and realizes his betrayal plan has been exposed. He angrily demands to know why Dongshu has turned against him. Dongshu gives him no comfort as the surrounding men block every possible exit. One loyal follower tries to resist and is immediately knocked from his feet. The others recoil as Liu's remaining authority begins collapsing in front of him. Dongshu forces him to open his eyes and look at the passengers waiting inside the car. With enemies on every side, Boss Liu finally understands that he was never leading this operation. At Dongshu's command, the ambushers rush forward and overwhelm Liu's supporters. Boss Liu covers his head as the confrontation dissolves into complete chaos. Due to the confusion, he desperately searches for whoever is truly directing the trap. His followers fall one after another while nobody can explain how their plan was discovered. Dongshu silences Liu and points toward the people sitting calmly inside the car. The headlights shift and finally reveal the passengers who came to witness his downfall. Boss Liu's anger becomes disbelief when he recognizes the faces staring back at him. Kui Jing sits beside Xingzi and another Bikuishan leader, looking completely pleased with himself. He reveals that Liu's betrayal was discovered long before the plan could begin. Held in place by the ambushers, Boss Liu screams that everyone he trusted betrayed him first. Kui Jing remains calm and treats Liu's outrage as the useless noise of a defeated man. The red-haired leader gives a small signal that ends the argument immediately. A rope is secured around Boss Liu before he can break away from his captors. One of the stronger men pulls him upward and leaves him suspended outside the mansion. Boss Liu struggles helplessly while his former allies watch without offering assistance. His hanging figure becomes a warning above the entrance for anyone else considering betrayal. Zhang and Chen's bus enters the same street before the night is over. They move along the mansion wall and immediately notice something unusual near the gate. Looking upward, Zhang discovers Boss Liu suspended directly above their path. He pauses beneath the defeated leader and studies the situation in silence. Zhang admits he is disappointed that someone else dealt with the pathetic man first. With a quick throw, he cuts the rope holding Boss Liu above the ground. Liu drops heavily onto the street and remains unable to resist. Zhang grabs him and prepares to learn exactly what happened inside Bikuishan. Before the questioning begins, suspicious noises from an upstairs room draw his attention. Inside, the restrained Xingzi complains that this is not the reward she was promised. The red-haired leader silences her protest, unaware that the situation outside has completely changed. Kui Jing hears the disturbance below and quickly gets up to investigate. He reaches the window while the other leader remains behind with Xingzi. The final PDF page is a scanlation promotion and contains no story content. The man near the window finally realizes an intruder has entered the mansion. Outside the bedroom, Chen removes the armed guards before either man can raise an alarm. A heavy impact shakes the locked door and warns everyone that their protection has already failed. Jiang bursts into the room and catches Qingzi surrounded by the men who betrayed Boss Lu. He quietly studies the scene, letting their panic reveal exactly what has been happening. Before the closest man can react, Jiang places his blade against his throat. One swift movement silences the first leader and erases the confidence from everyone else. The injured man falls aside while Jiang immediately turns toward his remaining targets. The red-haired leader recognizes Jiang Xiaoyong and realizes the Rongxiang fighter has found them. Jiang sends the recovered blade across the room before the man can call for help. The attack catches him mid-warning and leaves him unable to continue resisting. He collapses beside the bed while Qingzi is caught in the same attack. Now cornered and injured, Qingzi demands to know how Jiang found them. Jiang calmly asks whether everyone was enjoying themselves before he interrupted. He wonders what Boss Lu would think after seeing how quickly his wife abandoned him. The reminder destroys Qingzi's confidence as she realizes exactly why Jiang came. Jiang brings the battered Boss Lu inside and lets him witness the betrayal himself. Qingzi recognizes her husband reaching toward her and immediately understands what comes next. She begs Jiang for forgiveness and desperately asks him to keep Boss Lu away. Jiang leaves the couple together as Boss Lu's rage finally erupts. He calmly closes the door while Qingzi's frightened cries continue from inside. Outside the mansion, Jiang directs Chen toward the fallen raiders so he can feed. Chen gestures that one meal is more than enough to satisfy his hunger. Before they leave, a faint sound from somewhere nearby catches Jiang's attention. His enhanced hearing isolates several frightened voices behind another sealed room. Inside, captive families huddle beneath boarded windows while the gang chooses its next victim. A heavy-set cook examines the prisoners with the cold interest of someone selecting ingredients. One guard drags a frightened little girl forward so the cook can inspect her. He rejects the child for being too thin and orders them to find someone larger. His attention shifts towards Zai Zai, who remains protected in his terrified mother's arms. The guard pulls the boy away while his mother desperately refuses to let go. She is thrown aside and Zai Zai cries out as the men carry him toward the cook. Still on the floor, his mother begs them to spare her son and take her instead. A sudden disturbance beyond the room forces every captor to turn toward the entrance. 3 powerful impacts strike the sealed door as something dangerous approaches from outside. The cook gathers every remaining fighter and orders them to cover the only entrance. The distraction gives Zai Zai enough time to return safely to his mother's arms. The armed men form a line and wait nervously for the door to open. Even the most confident guards begin questioning what could be standing outside. One man steadies himself near the entrance and prepares to attack the first thing through. Chen reaches him from the blind side before he can respond. A single kick sends the first guard flying away from the doorway. The others recognize Chen as an infected mutant and attack without thinking. Their barrage tears into the doorway, but Chen has already disappeared from their aim. They keep attacking the entrance while his movement remains completely hidden. Chen suddenly crashes through from above and lands inside their formation. The cook raises his cleaver only to find the mutant dropping directly toward him. Chen catches the larger man by the face before he can finish his swing. He throws the cook aside and immediately launches himself toward the remaining captors. The fight ends quickly beyond the prisoner's view as frightened cries echo through the building. When the room falls silent, Chen stands alone among every defeated captor. His coat is torn and covered with holes, but Chen himself barely seems affected. Jiang enters behind him and checks how his mutant companion handled the fight. Chen studies the damaged coat and decides the new look somehow makes him even cooler. The rescued families stare in silence, unsure whether they should thank Chen or fear him. The masked mutant stands silently among the survivors, and his presence alone keeps the entire room frozen. One frightened mother pulls her daughter close as both of them tremble under his intimidating gaze. Jiang Xiaoyong calmly steps forward and raises his hand, showing the child that nobody plans to hurt her. The little girl blinks through her tears as she begins recognizing the young man standing before her. Jiang notices the recognition in her eyes and pauses to understand why she seems familiar with him. He lowers himself to their level and assures the mother that the immediate danger has already passed. The woman remains cautious and asks what kind of creature the masked man beside him actually is. Jiang answers carefully since the truth about intelligent mutants will only make these survivors more nervous. The masked man is an extremely rare mutant to retain far more awareness than the creatures outside. Some mutants preserve fragments of reason and memory, making them smarter hunters, but dangerously unpredictable when their bodies destabilize. Hearing that description makes the masked mutant wonder whether Jiang considers him just as unstable. Jiang reassures him with a hand on his shoulder, confirming that he belongs among the rare exceptions. He then explains that more survivors remain trapped inside the sales office somewhere within Bili Villa. With no time to waste, Jiang leads the group deeper into the darkened building to search for them. A trail of dark stains stretches from the corridor ahead and immediately signals that something terrible happened here. Jiang stops as the others gather behind him, their fear returning the moment they see the scene ahead. A large shadow reaches across the floor before the group can properly identify what caused the disturbance. They discover several bodies scattered around the room, turning their rescue mission into a much darker investigation. The survivors stare in horror while Jang studies the area and tries to understand why so many people were attacked. There are far too many victims for one creature to consume, making Jang suspect someone was deliberately feeding zombies. The rescued residents confirm that the situation has been getting worse, giving Jang even more reason to keep searching. Before he can continue questioning them, another system notification suddenly appears in front of his eyes. The Rebirth Utopia mission activates and rewards Jang for expanding the community by bringing more survivors under his protection. Their next destination is the sales office, where the remaining captives have been locked away. Outside the building, two guards casually discuss distant gunshots and admit that people have been used for target practice. Before the guards can react, the masked mutant drops into their circle and immediately destroys their confidence. Inside the office, several exhausted women remain trapped among broken furniture and scattered debris. The sudden impacts outside make the captives tense up as they listen for anyone approaching their room. One woman tells the others to stay quiet and pray that whoever is outside never comes through the door. That hope disappears when the handle slowly turns from the other side. Panic takes over as one captive desperately begs the stranger outside not to enter. The door opens to reveal Jang standing calmly in the doorway instead of another hostile guard. He tells the captives that their guards are gone and orders everyone capable of walking to come outside. The rescued women follow Jiang through the building while the other survivors escort them past the defeated enemies. Once everyone is together, Jiang offers the newcomers a place beside his growing community. He makes it clear that survival will require them to rebuild together instead of waiting helplessly for protection. The rescued group agrees without hesitation, since following Jiang is clearly safer than remaining inside the villa. Jiang ends the discussion and leads everyone away before any new threat can reach the building. Their bus leaves Billy Villa behind and carries the enlarged group toward Jiang's protected territory. They finally arrive at the compound late that night with every rescued survivor still safely aboard. Jiang's people rush toward the gate in surprise when they realize how many newcomers he brought back. He explains that the main shelter cannot hold everyone, but he already has another location prepared. The newcomers nervously wait to hear where Jiang expects them to live after leaving the villa. He offers them T-Town and promises that its conditions can improve as the community repairs and expands it. By morning, another car and a heavily loaded truck arrive back at Billy Villa. The lead vehicle rolls through the entrance with its warning light flashing across the empty compound. Inside the car, the red jacket woman clicks her tongue after receiving no answer from anyone stationed nearby. She grows irritated that Jiang Qinwen has stopped responding and wonders what could have delayed him. Her irritation quickly becomes suspicion as the unnatural silence tells her something is seriously wrong. She enters the building with the bearded man and discovers the dark remains of the earlier confrontation. The sight hardens her expression as she searches the room for whoever might still be alive. Before either newcomer can investigate further, the fallen figures begin rising in distorted, mutated forms. The nearest mutant turns toward them with empty eyes and releases a threatening growl. The newly transformed creatures charge together, hoping their numbers will overwhelm the two intruders. The red jacket woman answers with one effortless strike that sends the first attacker crashing aside. A burst of blue energy sweeps through the room and stops the remaining mutants from surrounding her. With the immediate threat handled, she calmly raises her blade and examines what remains around them. The bearded man begins discussing their next move, but her expression shows that she has already decided. Standing over the defeated mutants, she declares that they have one matter to settle before doing anything else. Her priority is now simple: find whoever destroyed this operation and kill them. Wan desperately shields herself as the masked mutant towers over her in the abandoned shopping mall. She begs for her life without realizing that the silent mutant has no intention of harming her. Instead of attacking, he turns away and leaves Wan confused by his strangely restrained behavior. Her attention shifts toward approaching footsteps and another familiar voice coming from behind her. Zhang Xiaoyang arrives with the silver-haired survivor, giving Wan another surprise after recognizing his face. Zhang calmly offers his hand and helps her understand that the immediate danger has already passed. He remembers Wan as the real estate saleswoman who helped him purchase his property before the apocalypse. The memory confirms her identity since Wan personally handled Jiang's deal during their previous meeting. She immediately warns him about the monster inside the mall, but Jiang assures her that his masked companion is friendly. Wan tries to process that explanation while standing uncomfortably close to someone who still resembles a nightmare. Before she can calm down, another presence behind them makes her eyes widen again. A much larger mutant emerges and assumes the masked man has been keeping every human here for himself. The accusation confuses the masked mutant, who clearly does not share the creature's hunger or way of thinking. The larger creature drops from above and decides to settle the matter through force. It celebrates meeting another intelligent mutant, although its idea of friendship begins with attempted murder. The creature draws back its enormous fist and launches the first attack without another word. Its strike drives the masked mutant into the floor before he can properly defend himself. The attacker laughs at the easy opening and assumes this fight will end quickly. That confidence fades when the masked mutant stops the next blow and refuses to stay down. The larger creature responds by pressing its weight forward and trying to overpower him completely. Penned beneath the attack, the masked mutant waits for one opening instead of wasting strength. He finds it and drives a powerful kick upward into the creature. The counterattack launches the mutant away and finally creates enough distance for him to stand. The masked man regains his footing while quietly reassessing an opponent stronger than anything he expected here. His enemy recovers almost instantly and prepares to attack again. Its muscles expand as a new burst of power strengthens an already dangerous body. The masked mutant immediately realizes the creature has been holding back until now. With glowing eyes and renewed confidence, the larger mutant closes in to finish the fight. A rapid exchange erupts across the mall, as both mutants collide faster than the others can follow. Even Zhang's silver-haired companion is shocked by how quickly the fight has escalated. Zhang decides to interfere and summons a rifle from his system inventory right in front of Wanwan. He raises the weapon and waits for a clean angle instead of firing blindly into the struggle. The larger mutant grabs the masked man and uses his body to block Jiang's line of sight. Zhang fires the moment the creature exposes itself. The shot tears past its face, but the wound barely slows its advance. Rather than retreating, the mutant charges directly toward Zhang with terrifying speed. Its heavy footsteps crack the floor as it closes the remaining distance. The creature laughs after surviving the first shot and mocks Zhang for only managing to hurt it. The silver-haired survivor cannot believe that even a direct hit to the head failed to stop this thing. Zhang answers by unleashing sustained fire before the mutant can reach him. The barrage finally punches through its reinforced body and destroys the confidence it had seconds earlier. The wounded creature remains upright for one last moment before its strength completely disappears. With the threat handled, Zhang tells the masked mutant that he still needs to become much stronger. The system rewards Zhang for removing a dangerous element and raises his community score by another point. Zhang refuses to leave empty-handed and orders everyone to clear the supermarket before returning home. His storage ability sweeps through the building and pulls entire shelves of supplies into the system inventory. Once everything valuable is secured, Zhang dismisses his weapon and prepares the group for departure. Their car leaves the mall carrying Wanwan and enough supplies to make the entire trip worthwhile. Nearby, the bearded scout watches through binoculars while the red jacket woman waits beside him. His attention lands on Wanwan standing safely among the survivors outside the building. He also spots the larger group gathering around the supermarket and realizes someone has taken control of this area. The discovery amuses him since their mysterious enemy appears to be organizing survivors instead of merely passing through. The red jacket woman asks for his assessment, while their driver nervously listens from the front seat. He confirms that this group is almost certainly connected to the people who destroyed their previous operation. The driver suggests attacking immediately, but the woman decides they need more information before making a move. Their vehicle turns away from the mall before Jiang's group notices the surveillance. Meanwhile, Zhang's car speeds back toward the settlement with the rescued survivors. Wanwan finally relaxes and talks excitedly about escaping the mall alive. Zhang's expression changes when he notices another vehicle approaching from the opposite direction. Wanwan and the silver-haired survivor tense up as Jiang warns everyone to stay ready. The older man quietly grips his weapon while watching the unknown car draw closer. The two vehicles pass beside each other with only a narrow stretch of road between them. Zhang turns toward the window and catches a brief glimpse of the passengers inside. The red jacket woman looks back at the same moment, leaving both sides aware that their paths have finally crossed. The system warns Zhang that an enemy invasion is approaching and offers 50 points for resisting it. His thoughts immediately return to the suspicious woman whose car passed them on the road. Zhang drives back into the settlement knowing someone may already be watching his people. He heads straight toward the watchtower to check whether anything unusual happened during his absence. Zhang asks the brown-haired lookout whether any strangers have appeared around the compound recently. She reports that the settlement has remained quiet and points across the area to confirm it. Zhang still decides they should make an announcement while closely monitoring every entrance. Elsewhere, another survivor group occupies the south suburb coal plant. A walkie-talkie crackles as the coal plant survivors send another message into the surrounding area. Their broadcast announces a new settlement and openly asks nearby survivors to provide desperately needed manpower. The guards suddenly notice an unfamiliar car approaching and assume their recruitment message finally worked. One eager man waves the newcomers forward without questioning why they arrived so quickly. The vehicle brakes directly outside the coal plant entrance. Its passengers claim they heard the broadcast and came to join, so the guards welcome them immediately. Whatever caution remains disappears when one guard notices the striking woman stepping from the car. The red-jacketed woman recognizes his interest and realizes he will be extremely easy to manipulate. A friendly touch and a simple request are enough to make the flustered guard volunteer as her guide. He agrees so eagerly that even his amused companions understand exactly what he is hoping for. The visitors enter the warehouse while everyone continues treating them as harmless new recruits. Their guide proudly shows off the spacious facility, convinced the settlement has gained valuable new members. He soon uses the restroom as an excuse to separate himself from the larger group. The woman follows with a knowing smile and lets him believe their private meeting was his idea. Once inside, the distracted guard turns away and leaves himself completely exposed. He remains pleased with himself while failing to notice the danger standing behind him. The woman waits with folded arms until there is no chance of him calling for help. The guard finally notices that she never left and slowly turns toward her. His excitement vanishes the moment he sees the cold expression in her eyes. She closes the distance before he can shout and immediately takes control of the situation. A moment later, the helpless guard is lying on the floor beside her boots. The woman looks down with complete indifference after discovering how little resistance he offered. She returns to her accomplice while he confirms that the rest of their operation succeeded. With the coal plant defenders already overwhelmed, she orders them to summon number 2 and number 3. Back at Zhang's settlement, every capable survivor gathers around the table for an emergency meeting. Zhang explains that an organized enemy is approaching, yet they know nothing about its strength or numbers. He also plans to secure another building where part of their growing refugee population can live safely. The brown-haired lookout and the bespectacled survivor immediately ask Jiang to bring them along. 2 trained guards volunteer as well, refusing to let the strongest members take every dangerous assignment. Even a young boy tries joining until the adults quickly pull him out of the discussion. Another capable woman raises her hand and asks Jiang to include her in the expedition. Zhang accepts their determination, but limits the team to people who can protect themselves during combat. The selected group leaves with Jiang Changye and the silver-haired survivor leading the formation. Their destination is a large abandoned building with enough space to become a second settlement. Hostile creatures rush the group inside, forcing every volunteer to prove whether they can remain calm. The survivors fight together and stop the sudden attack from breaking their formation. When the danger passes, Jiang checks the entire group and confirms that nobody suffered serious injuries. With the building secured, he tells the refugees they can begin settling here. Several residents insist they can defend the new location instead of depending on Jiang for every emergency. Their confidence convinces him that they are ready to take responsibility for the outpost. Jiang orders both settlements to coordinate through walkie-talkies and follow his instructions whenever trouble appears. Vehicles begin unloading food and essential supplies so the new community can start operating immediately. Meanwhile, the red-jacketed woman waits outside the coal plant after successfully taking control from within. Number 2 arrives with a towering cannibal who immediately demands the human captives he was promised. The woman approaches both reinforcements and prepares to explain why those prisoners are no longer available. Learning that someone took their prey makes the furious giant demand the identity of whoever interfered. Her satisfied smile shows that she already knows exactly where to direct their anger. Night eventually settles over Jiang's home after the second settlement is fully secured. The refreshed system store offers awakening crates, farming resources and basic food supplies at different prices. With fresh points available, Jiang opens the menu to see which reward can strengthen his community next. Jiang studies Overload, which raises every physical stat by 25%, but leaves him weakened after the effect ends. His strength rises above 40, giving him temporary power far beyond what an ordinary survivor can reach. He clenches his fist and immediately feels the difference running through his body. Before Jiang can test it further, roaring engines and a rolling dust cloud break the settlement's silence. A coordinated convoy approaches with several vehicles and motorcycles moving together. Inside the lead vehicle, the red-jacketed commander orders her driver to repeat the plan so nobody improvises. The driver acknowledges her command while keeping his attention fixed on the settlement ahead. Behind them, the giant evolver snarls impatiently and demands permission to attack and feed. The entire convoy accelerates and closes the remaining distance without hiding its intentions. Jiang's fortified settlement now stands directly ahead of the invading force. On the rooftop, a former police officer warns Jiang that the blind spots along the walls are enormous. Jiang calmly explains that those weaknesses are intentional, leaving the officer curious about his plan. He remembers hearing that the officer once served in a sniper position before the apocalypse. The man admits he was only a temporary replacement, but Jiang only cares whether the skill remains. The officer confidently claims he can still strike a target from 500 meters away. That answer is enough for Jiang to assign him an important role in the coming defense. The silver-haired fighter approaches while Jiang finishes discussing the rooftop position. Jiang opens a glowing supply crate before both men and reveals the equipment prepared for the marksman. A powerful long-range rifle rests inside and leaves the former officer completely stunned. He asks where Jiang could possibly have found equipment this valuable during the apocalypse. After inspecting it closely, the officer realizes Jiang has entrusted him with serious responsibility. Jiang orders both men to prepare while the settlement moves into its defensive positions. The brown-haired lookout soon reports unusual movement approaching the compound. The rooftop marksman spots the convoy as well and begins tracking its advance. Inside the enemy vehicle, the driver asks whether they should reconsider now that the settlement may have noticed them. The red-jacketed commander cuts off his hesitation and orders the assault to continue. Her entire convoy surges forward as every attacker commits to the charge. The lookout waits until the vehicles enter range before ordering the defenders to open fire. Armed survivors line the upper walkway and release a coordinated barrage toward the road. The approaching vehicles are hammered from several directions before they can reach the compound. One driver begins panicking as repeated impacts strike the vehicle around him. The convoy loses its formation while a damaged vehicle swerves away from the others. A wheel tears loose and sends one vehicle drifting dangerously across the road. The enemy commander realizes they were detected early and their planned surprise has completely failed. She still orders everyone forward and tells them to use the compound wall for protection. The surviving vehicles finally reach the blind spot beside the main entrance. An attacker immediately jumps from the convoy and lands heavily beside the gate. The giant evolver steps forward carrying an enormous cutting tool and roars for the assault to begin. He drives the spinning blade against the reinforced entrance and begins carving through the metal. The defenders realize the convoy only needed to reach the wall so the giant could breach their gate. Jiang's people fire downward while the invaders answer from below and protect the giant during his work. An incoming shot strikes the railing and forces the brown-haired lookout back into cover. The silver-haired fighter catches a wounded defender before the impact can send him falling. The invaders quickly realize that Zhang's settlement possesses nearly as much firepower as they do. Their field leader orders everyone to hold position since they still have enough ammunition to continue. Inside the compound, the defenders report that the giant is cutting through the main gate. Zhang receives the warning and understands that the entrance only has moments left. Rather than remain protected upstairs, he slips outside through another doorway. Zhang races along the exterior walkway to approach the attackers from an unexpected direction. The red-jacketed commander learns that her group has already spent half its ammunition. The giant evolver laughs and announces that he only needs a little more time. Another violent impact shakes the entrance and widens the damaged section. The brown-haired lookout rallies the defenders and orders them to keep firing while supporting the gate. The enemy commander senses an evolver nearby and smiles as the battle finally becomes interesting. She orders her people to rush inside and secure cover the moment the entrance opens. The giant evolver grips the damaged gate and begins forcing both sides apart. From a nearby walkway, Zhang tells the rooftop marksman to remain ready and wait for his signal. The officer settles behind the rifle and asks whether the giant evolver is his intended target. The creature fills his scope as Zhang confirms that this is exactly who he wants taken down. The giant evolver roars and charges forward, confident that nothing inside the settlement can stop him. The defenders watch in alarm as the towering attacker closes in without showing the slightest fear. Several survivors open fire together, hoping concentrated attacks will bring the giant down before he reaches them. The shots land across his body, yet he only grits his teeth and continues advancing. Their bullets remain lodged inside him as the surrounding wounds begin closing on their own. The older defender recognizes the ability immediately and warns everyone that the giant can regenerate. The red-jacketed commander mocks their surprise, assuming they have never faced a real evolver before. The warning reaches the rooftop marksman, confirming that their smaller weapons cannot overcome the giant's healing. He calmly settles behind Jiang's long-range rifle and prepares the weapon meant for this exact threat. With the giant standing completely exposed, the marksman takes a shot. The powerful round lands before the evolver can react and instantly stops his fearless advance. His enormous body crashes onto the courtyard as the regeneration finally fails to protect him. The remaining invaders freeze, unable to understand how their strongest fighter fell from a single attack. Their commander realizes Zhang's settlement possesses far more dangerous equipment than her scouts reported. Before she can reorganize, Zhang appears behind the invaders and blocks their safest escape route. The attackers discover armed defenders closing from both directions, leaving their entire formation trapped. Their commander admits she underestimated the settlement's strength and abandons the invasion immediately. She orders everyone to retreat while the surviving attackers race toward their remaining vehicles. During the escape, the woman recognizes Zhang as the man whose vehicle passed hers earlier. Zhang recognizes her as well and realizes their brief encounter on the road was no coincidence. Desperate for protection, the commander grabs one of her own subordinates without warning. She pulls him into the incoming fire and uses the stunned man as a human shield. Zhang watches her sacrifice an ally without hesitation and understands exactly how she treats her followers. She throws the injured subordinate toward Zhang and uses the distraction to gain more distance. Zhang knocks the man aside and keeps his attention fixed on the fleeing commander. The remaining invaders leap toward the road while she sprints for the waiting vehicle. The rooftop marksman notices her escape attempt and immediately brings her into his sights. She crosses the open courtyard with no cover between herself and his scope. His next shot catches her leg and ruins her chance of reaching the vehicle alone. The wounded commander collapses beside the car as her remaining allies rush toward her. The marksman realizes his shot stopped her but failed to end the escape completely. Two surviving men drag her upright while she screams at the driver to move. Their vehicle tears away under continued fire and carries the remaining invaders out of the settlement. The system confirms Zhang repelled the invasion, raising community morale and bringing his total to 76 points. A second mission immediately orders him to attack the enemy base and eliminate the cannibal faction. Inside the settlement, the survivors celebrate their first victory against an organized invading force. Zhang quickly restores order by sending the injured for treatment and assigning others to clear the battlefield. He has the enemy bodies moved into an abandoned building that remains secure for the moment. With 76 points available, Jiang opens the system store and prepares to make another major investment. Meanwhile, the defeated invaders finally return to the warehouse, serving as their main base. The wounded commander is helped from the vehicle by the two men who escaped beside her. A muscular blonde enforcer approaches with several followers and demands to know what happened. She glares back at him, furious that the settlement reduced her once powerful group to this condition. Still struggling to stand, the commander demands that they bring her another captive so she can recover. The blonde enforcer answers with silence and a smirk that reveals his loyalty has already changed. She insults the surrounding men and orders them to move before she loses what remains of her patience. The blonde man decides her defeat has stripped away the authority she once used to control them. She notices his defiance and angrily asks whether he is openly rebelling against her. The commander orders the surrounding men to restrain him before anyone else follows his example. Nobody obeys, and the sudden silence reveals that she no longer commands anyone here. The blonde enforcer raises his metal weapon and declares that the others have endured her leadership long enough. He asks the gathered men whether they agree, and their expressions give him the answer he expected. Now surrounded, the wounded commander still threatens anyone foolish enough to challenge her. The crowd closes in from every direction as her remaining confidence finally turns into fear. The blonde enforcer raises his weapon with a laugh, ready to seize control of the faction himself. Back at the coal factory, the rebels continue overwhelming their wounded commander while Third Master joins the attack. The red-jacketed woman can only protect herself as the men she once controlled turn against her together. Their former leader finally collapses, leaving the coal factory under completely new management. The blonde enforcer calmly cleans his hands while a nervous subordinate addresses him as Third Master. That title immediately irritates him and he grabs the man to demand the promotion he believes he earned. The terrified subordinate corrects himself to boss and apologizes before the new leader loses his patience again. He reports that their combat strength has fallen dramatically after the failed invasion and recent losses. Third Master remembers the powerful tentacle man and realizes nobody comparable remains under his command. Rather than remain exposed, he decides the surviving group will seek protection from the people in Zhejiang. Not long afterward, Jiang Xiaoyang arrives at the abandoned coal factory to complete his mission. He enters the compound with Chang Yi and the silver-haired survivor while the strangely empty grounds keep everyone alert. Zhang orders both companions to move quietly as they follow the wall toward the main factory buildings. Their search quickly leads them to the red-jacketed commander lying abandoned in the open yard. Zhang is not surprised that the cannibals betrayed their leader the moment she became too weak to control them. He turns the explanation toward Chang Yi, whose mutant body makes the subject of evolution especially important. Both companions recognize that the fallen woman had already developed far beyond an ordinary survivor. Zhang reveals that she reached that level by consuming other people. The explanation shocks both men who never imagined humans could evolve through something so cruel. Zhang explains that the process mirrors zombie evolution and offers the most direct path toward greater strength. His own rapid growth briefly makes the others wonder whether Zhang followed the same method. Zhang rejects that suspicion and clarifies that the most direct method is not the only one available. He produces a glowing energy core and shows them the power hidden inside evolved creatures. Mutants can absorb this foreign energy and use it to push their bodies through further evolution. As the catastrophe deepens, stronger zombies will also develop cores containing increasingly concentrated energy. The lesson becomes less appealing once both companions consider what absorbing zombie energy actually involves. Zhang warns that ordinary humans would become infected if they tried taking that energy into their bodies. Only mutants, such as Chang Yi, can safely use it, while the completed mission raises Zhang's total to 126 points. Before anyone can leave, Zhang senses movement and turns sharply toward the body behind them. The fallen woman suddenly mutates and lunges, but Zhang intercepts her before she reaches either companion. His counter sends the transformed attacker crashing back onto the ground. A second energy core glows inside her mutated body and reveals what triggered the sudden revival. Zhang removes the core before the creature can recover and attack again. Now holding two cores, he has enough energy to give Chang Yi a meaningful increase in strength. Zhang hands both cores to Chang Yi while the silver-haired survivor wisely keeps his distance. The concentrated energy immediately changes Chang Yi's eyes as his mutant body responds. He consumes both cores and allows their stored power to spread through him. The effect strengthens his body within moments, confirming that Zhang's explanation was completely accurate. Zhang Yi assures Zhang that he understands the danger and still has the foreign energy under control. With the stronghold cleared and Chang Yi upgraded, Zhang leads both companions back home. Meanwhile, Third Master and his remaining followers arrive outside the heavily guarded Zifeng steel factory. A factory guard notices the unfamiliar group and challenges them before they can approach the entrance. Third Master introduces himself as the coal factory's new leader and requests a meeting with the people in charge. The guard recognizes the coal factory connection, but remains cautious about their sudden arrival. After a brief inspection, the visitors are escorted inside under the watch of several factory members. The bald factory leader and his bespectacled companion greet Third Master and ask why he came without warning. Third Master claims enemies attacked them and that Big Sister and Second Brother sacrificed themselves protecting everyone. The factory leader answers with a knowing smile that makes his true thoughts impossible to read. He orders Third Master and the coal factory survivors to be taken into the safe house. The bespectacled woman shares a silent look with him while their guests follow the escort away. From outside, the steel factory appears peaceful enough for Third Master to believe his escape succeeded. Inside their assigned room, he snaps when one follower nearly addresses him by the wrong title again. The nervous subordinate admits that something about the factory's controlled welcome feels dangerously wrong. Another man notices the barred windows and realizes their supposed safe house is actually a prison. Before anyone can react, a factory enforcer throws open the door and blocks their only exit. The enforcer orders every coal factory survivor to come outside immediately. Third Master's group enters the main warehouse and finds dozens of factory members waiting around them. His confidence disappears as he asks the factory leader what happened to their supposed alliance. The bespectacled woman reveals that they already know he tried to assassinate his former leader. Completely surrounded, Third Master raises his hands and desperately tries to talk his way out. The bespectacled woman continues the confrontation by giving Third Master's group only two possible choices. Third Master studies the men surrounding them and realizes the steel mill has already decided who holds the power. One captive snaps back at the threat, still trying to sound tougher than the situation allows. Third Master joins the protest and demands to know why their supposed allies are treating them like prisoners. The bald leader laughs and explains that old connections are the only reason they received a conversation at all. His smile turns cold as he makes it clear that refusing to cooperate will cost every one of them. One frightened follower immediately begs for a chance to provide useful information. The bespectacled woman turns toward him and waits to hear whether he has anything worth saying. He rushes forward and promises to reveal everything about the failed invasion of Zhang's settlement. She asks how Zhang's forces compare with their own and what kind of threat the steel mill is facing. Both leaders listen closely as the captive begins describing what happened at the compound. He reveals that Zhang has at least one genuine evolver fighting on his side. That detail catches the room's attention since even powerful factions cannot produce evolvers easily. The bald leader questions how an entire assault failed against a base with only one known evolver. The informant explains that Jiang also possesses heavy weapons and offers every detail he can remember. The bespectacled woman finally smiles now that their unknown enemy is becoming easier to measure. Third Master and his followers exchange worried looks as they realize cooperation may not save them. Their desperate pleas soon echo across the steel mill while its leaders carry out their decision. The captured traitors are dealt with once they have revealed everything useful. With the informants gone, the leaders decide Zhang's heavy weapons make an immediate attack far too risky. They leave the defeated men behind and choose to strengthen their evolvers before making another move. Back at the settlement, Jiang opens the system shop and considers what his 126 points can purchase. The most valuable option is a level 2 black tech supply box costing 50 points. Jiang selects it, immediately choosing a major upgrade over another pile of basic supplies. The box erupts with light as its reward begins materializing inside the room. A knock interrupts the reveal before Jiang can even see what he received. The brown-haired lookout enters and reports that the guards caught a suspicious man near the settlement. Jiang sets the box aside and orders everyone involved to come outside. The silver-haired fighter and a uniformed guard escort the nervous stranger into the courtyard. Jiang meets them with the lookout beside him while the prisoner remains firmly restrained. He tells the man to stop stalling and explain exactly why he came here. The lookout quietly addresses Jiang as everyone waits for the stranger's answer. The captive calls him Brother Yang and tries turning the interrogation into a friendly reunion. Several residents recognize him as someone connected to their workplace before the apocalypse. One former co-worker confirms his identity, but that still does not explain why he entered the base. Jiang leans closer and asks what he is really doing here. The man keeps using the familiar title and asks Jiang to hear his explanation first. He claims another survivor group only sent him to recruit their former co-workers back. A bespectacled resident interrupts by producing a detailed map found among the stranger's belongings. Jang studies the markings and notices that the supposed recruiter recorded important parts of their defenses. His eyes glow as Mind's eye exposes the thoughts hidden beneath the man's practice story. The captive forces a harmless smile while privately believing his excuse has already worked. Jang raises his weapon and instantly destroys that confidence. He explains that scouts always map a target before an attack and demands the truth immediately. The stranger swallows hard as he realizes Jang has already seen through the entire act. He finally admits that his people sent him to inspect the settlement before deciding how to approach it. The silver-haired fighter quietly warns Jang that releasing an enemy scout could expose them further. Jang surprises everyone by calmly ordering the guards to release him. The captive stares in disbelief, barely able to accept that he is actually being spared. Jang even returns the marked map and repeats the order so nobody mistakes his intention. The relieved scout bows repeatedly and thanks Brother Yang before anyone can change their mind. He races away from the compound and heads straight back toward the people who sent him. Jang watches him leave with a knowing smile, finally identifying Westwind Steel Mill as the faction testing his defenses.